Hello. Hello. Welcome in. Welcome to Storytime with Moog. I am Moog, and today we are reading The World Set Free by H.G. Wells, starting with Chapter 2, Section 8. But first, hello everybody. So good to see you all. Hello, hi. Dried Moss, hello. You've been reading the Witcher books again. Well, I was gonna ask if you're enjoying it, but I'm assuming yes, since again, I haven't read any of them. I haven't played any of the games. I have watched the show. I've done one of the three. Paul's hello, good to see you. Florida Kevin, just popping in for getting some beauty rest. Love it. Good to see you. Wadsworth, hello. Hello, hi. Hello, hi. Ember, hello. Hello. Maybe missing a lot for this, a lot of context for this. H.G. Wells, once again. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, all of the things that you've missed, you'll be able to catch up very quickly. Very, very quickly. It's not so much narrative driven, so you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Uh, hello, friend. Grouchy, hello. Good to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. Yay, no character development. And not a single character has been developed so far, so. You have an appointment in the morning. Terrible. Terrible. Elite, hello. So good to see you. It's a good thing we're not traveling in time this time. We've just created the atomic bomb. That's what we've done. It's what we've done in this one. He predicted the atomic bomb in the year 1914 and wish he didn't. Wish he didn't. You played all of The Witcher, but not finished any of the games. Yeah, watched all of the shows on Netflix. Yeah, yeah. Your sister showed you a pic of a tree that fell over from the storm earlier. The storm was crazy. It was crazy. Just all of a sudden, storm. It got like super dark in the house. It's like, what is happening? Looked outside, the biggest, lowest, darkest cloud that you can imagine, and then just sheets of rain that you could see. And now it's really nice outside. Yeah. Now it's beautifully nice. The sun is like out. It's weird. It's weird. 15 stream streak. Florida Kevin, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your predictability. Had to end our stream early because of the storm. I was hoping that we wouldn't have any issues because of it. We'll see. It looks like I've already dropped several frames, so we'll see how it goes. Rainbows and children singing in the streets now. Yeah. Yeah. And like looking out into the street, there was just like a river. Just like a river right next to like the curb. And you could just see all of the garbage that people have thrown outside their window just passing on through. Gross. Disgusting. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. You're at work, so you just, oh, you could hear it from there and there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fun. That's fun. And we had a power surge, not during the storm, but earlier today. So who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? You never do know when you're dealing with the internet or with Chicago weather. Wait a minute, what do you mean that H.G. Wells predicted the nuclear bomb in the early 1900s? Yeah, yeah, he did. He did. It's very upsetting. And even somebody who put in the patent for it was like, oh man, I wish that I didn't put in the patent. I wish that the patent that I put in is not accepted because I read all of H.G. Wells's book, this book, and it's going to be terrible. And wouldn't you know it, the patent went through. And the guy who did it was like, oops, oopsie. I did an oopsie. Yeah, terrible. Terrible. So let's get to it, shall we? Shall we? Why not? Why not? One decision changed the course of the world and history forever. Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. Anyway. Elite. A 210 stream streak. That's crazy. Thank you so much. No oopsies allowed. No oopsies allowed. What is a good book set in the 1930s? Oh, as soon as anybody asks me any questions about books, my mind just goes blank. My mind just goes blank. Tay, hello, welcome in. Welcome in. Let's see, book set in 1930s. Let's see. Let's see. Do we want like new books or books that were written back in the day that also took place in 1930? Because that would also change what we're looking for. Let's see. What have we as a collective read? Oh, To Kill a Mockingbird. That took place in the 30s. Look at that. The Color Purple. I read that one. Rebecca. I don't know if I've read Rebecca. What is book? What is what is book? Oh, Water for Elephants. Oh, there's a lot of books that took place in the 30s. For Whom the Bell Tolls. Green Mile. Oh, some of these I don't believe. Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Hmm. Hmm. Before We Were Yours. Apparently, I've read that book. Apparently. I don't remember it at all. At all. A book that you're reading right now is Project Hail Mary for the first time. Oh, since you wanted to check it out before seeing the movie. Yeah, after waiting weeks from the hold at your library, you got it a couple of days ago and you're loving it so far. Amazing. Ember, what part are you at? It's a chonky book. It's real chonky. And also, did you read The Martian or anything else by him? He also has Artemis, which I heard isn't as great, so I haven't read that one. Oh wait, I missed a whole conversation. Hold on. Hold on. We did get anime. Yeah, we did get anime out of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Green Mile was sent in 1930s. Yeah, it was. It was. Another one that I haven't read. Other than H.P. Lovecraft, you don't think that you've read books set in the 1930s. Oh. Hmm. Yeah. Les Mis is a very long book. Yeah, it's like this big. It's like this big. I do want to read it. I've never read it. I've definitely what have I done? I've seen a live performance of it and I've seen like the movie with like Anne Hathaway. But I have not read it. I also know a fun fact. um I know a fun fact about it as well. The author Victor Hugo. Okay, so 24601 is the prisoner name of our or the prisoner number of our main guy in Les Mis. And 24601 is Victor Hugo's date of conception. Isn't that fun? Isn't that a fun fact that he used that date for the prisoner number? What? What? What a fun fact. Just on chapter 2, still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Yes. Love it. Yes. Weird pod lab space. Yeah. Also, the other astronauts are dead and out of context memories are coming back. And they will keep coming back for like the whole book. Specifically, barred your parents from sharing that information. You don't want to put it in a book that you're writing? That's weird. That's weird. Star, thank you so much for 155 stream streak. That is insane. Thank you so much. While you await the instructions to go to bed, go to bed. Grapes of Wrath is the 1930s dried moss. Yes, it is. Another book that I have not read. There's so many books that I haven't read. So many. So yes, that one is also set in the 1930s. With the odd but interesting book facts. I got you. I got you covered. And now, when you can squirrel that fun fact away and hold on to it deep inside, and then when the perfect moment in a conversation comes up, kind of like the one that we just experienced, you'll be able to pull that memory out, that fun fact, and then you'll get the response that you just gave. Drove by a house once and told her that's where you were made. Terrible. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't want that. Not one bit. Mm. Grapes of Wrath is on the list. Great. Grape. Terrible. Terrible. On that note, that when I start doing the bad puns, that's when we know it's time to switch gears. That's when we know. All right, so today we are reading The World Set Free by H.G. Wells. We're starting with Chapter 2, Section 8. All of the chapters are divided into various sections. What's happened so far? Glad that you've asked. So, our introduction and Chapter 1 was a lot of laying the foundation, in that we started all the way back in caveman times and we've gone through history to all of the inventions that man has created and the intention and how also it was changed into other things, which brings us to radioactivity and atomic energy. And now with that atomic energy we are at war. And so the current chapter that we're in, chapter 2, each section so far has been being with different people in the same war, and they're experiencing the same thing, but they're in various parts. So like for one of the sections we were with a secretary who was working with like a war council and they were firebombed. We've been with a pilot who was being chased down by another pilot while he was trying to get to his target. We are also interspersing the like narrative-esque part of the story, which is journal entries that we're reading from a Barnett. And that's where we are. That's where we are. Also, the chapter that we're on, chapter 2, is called The Last War. So. So. Thank you for asking, Pulse. But that's your thing. I know. And I'm good at it, right? Name limit, hello, welcome, and good to see you. Oh, mm-mm-mm. The Second World War. All right, okay. Let's see. All right, let's do it. Oh, thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. It's not like we have any, it's not like any wars are going on today or anything. No, it's not like any of this is relevant now. This was written in 1914. There's no way that the same things are happening now. There's no way that the same conversations and the same issues are happening now. We've fixed them all, right? Right? I know. I saw you. I saw you count that. All right, let's do it. Hmm. Brighter and busier. It's also dependent on the outside too. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Right? Right? Anyways, Victor Hugo. Oh, mm-mm-mm. Colleen, hello, welcome in. Good to see you. All right, you can't distract me. I've never been distracted before in my life. Ever. All right, chapter 2, section 8. We had cursed our luck, says Barnett, that we could not get to our quarters at Alkmaar that night. There, we were told, were provisions, tobacco, and everything for which we craved. But the main canal from Zaandam and Amsterdam was hopelessly jammed with craft, and we were glad of a chance opening that enabled us to get out of the main column and lie up in a kind of little harbor, very much neglected, and weed grown before a deserted house. We broke into this and found some herrings in a barrel, a heap of cheeses, and stone bottles of gin in the cellar. And with this, I cheered my starving men. We made fires and toasted the cheese and grilled our herrings. None of us had slept for nearly 40 hours, and I determined to stay in this refuge until dawn, and then, if the traffic was still choked, leave the barge and march the rest of the way into Alkmaar. This place we had got into was perhaps 100 yards from the canal, and underneath a little brick bridge we could see the flotilla still, and hear the voices of the soldiers. Presently 5 or 6 other barges came through and lay up in the mare near by us, and with 2 of these, full of men of the Antrim regiment, I shared my find of provisions. In return, we got tobacco. A large expanse of water spread to the westward of us, and beyond were a cluster of roofs and 1 or 2 church towers. The barge was rather cramped for so many men, and I let several squads, 30 or 40 perhaps altogether, bivouac on the bank. I did not let them go into the house on account of the furniture, and I left a note of indebtedness for the food we had taken. We were particularly glad of our tobacco and fires, because of the numerous mosquitoes that rose about us. I don't want mosquitoes. I don't want that. Distraction. Never distracted. Squirrel. Red herrings, I hope. I hope so too. I hope so too. We're rooting for you. Mm-mm. Bivouac is so fun. I've got to say it twice in this book. Still counting. It's so fun. It doesn't happen often enough, I feel like. Hmm. Twilight, did you just sneak in with some cheese? Good to see you. The gate of the house from which we had provisioned ourselves was adorned with the legend, Joy with Peace, and it bore every mark of the busy retirement of a comfort-loving proprietor. I went along his garden, which was gay and delightful with big bushes of rose and sweet briar, to a quaint little summer house, and there I sat and watched the men in groups cooking and squatting along the bank. The sun was setting in a nearly cloudless sky. For the last 2 weeks, I had been a wholly occupied man, intent only upon obeying the orders that came down to me. All through this time, I had been working to the very limit of my mental and physical faculties, and my only moments of rest had been devoted to snatches of sleep. Now came this rare, unexpected interlude, and I could look detachedly upon what I was doing and feel something of its infinite wonderfulness. I was irradiated with affection for the men of my company and with admiration at their cheerful acquiescence in the subordination that and needs of our position. I watched their proceedings and heard their pleasant voices. How willing those men were. How ready to accept leadership and forget themselves in collective ends. I thought how manfully they had gone through all the strains and toil of the last 2 weeks, how they had toughened and shaken down to comradeship together, and how much sweetness there is after all in our foolish human blood. For they were just one casual sample of the species. Their patience and readiness lay, as the energy of the atom had lain, still waiting to be properly utilized. Again, it came to me with overpowering force that the supreme need of our race is leading, that the supreme task is to discover leading, to forget oneself in realizing the collective purpose of the race. Once more, I saw life plain. Very characteristic is that of the rather too corpulent young officer, who was afterwards to set it all down in his biography. Very characteristic, too, it is of the change in men's hearts that was even then preparing a new phase of human history. Have a good lurk, elite. Elite. Autobot, no! I know. And their love for each other's company. So beautiful. He goes on to write of the escape from individuality in science and service, and of his discovery of this salvation. All that was then, no doubt, very moving and original. Now it seems only the most obvious commonplace of human life. The glow of the sunset faded. The twilight deepened into night. The fires burnt the brighter, and some Irishmen away across the mere started singing. But Barnett's men were too weary for that sort of thing, and soon the bank and the barge were heaped with sleeping forms. I alone seemed unable to sleep. I suppose I was over-weary, and after a little feverish slumber by the tiller of the barge, I sat up, awake and uneasy. That night Holland seemed all sky. There was just a little black lower rim to things, a steeple, perhaps, or a line of poplars, and then the great hemisphere swept over us, as at first the sky was empty. Yet my uneasiness referred itself in some vague way to the sky. And now I was melancholy. I found something strangely sorrowful and submissive in the sleepers all about me, those men who had marched so far, who had left all the established texture of their lives behind them to come upon this mad campaign, this campaign that signified nothing and consumed everything, this mere fever of fighting. I saw how little and feeble is the life of man, a thing of chances, preposterously unable to find the will to realize even the most timid of its dreams. And I wondered if always it would be so, if man was a doomed animal who would never to the last days of his time take hold of fate and change it to his will. Always, it may be, he will remain kindly but jealous, desirous but discursive, able and unwisely impulsive, until Saturn, who begot him shall devour him in his turn. I was roused from these thoughts by the sudden realization of the presence of a squadron of airplanes far away to the northeast and very high. They looked like those little black dashes against the midnight blue. I remember that I looked up at them at first rather idly, as one might notice a flight of birds. Then I perceived that they were only the extreme wing of a great fleet that was advancing in a long line very swiftly from the direction of the frontier, and my attention tightened. Directly I saw that fleet, I was astonished not to have seen it before. I stood up softly, undesirous of disturbing my companions, but with my heart beating now rather more rapidly with surprise and excitement. I strained my ears for any sound of guns along our front. Almost instinctively, I turned about for protection to the south and west and peered. And then I saw coming as fast and much nearer to me, as if they had sprung out of the darkness, 3 banks of airplanes. A group of squadrons very high, a main body at a height perhaps of 1,000 or 2,000 feet, and a doubtful number flying low and very indistinct. The middle ones were so thick they kept putting out groups of stars, and I realized that after all there was to be fighting in the air. There was something extraordinarily strange in this swift, noiseless convergence of nearly invisible combatants above the sleeping hosts. Every one about me was still unconscious. There was no sign as yet of any agitation among the shipping on the main canal, whose whole course, dotted with unsuspicious lights and fringed with fires, must have been clearly perceptible from above. Then a long way off towards Alkmaar, I heard bugles, and after that shots, and then a wild clamor of bells. I determined to let my men sleep on for as long as they could. Study, hello, welcome in, good to see you. The battle was joined with the swiftness of dreaming. I do not think it can have been 5 minutes from the moment when I first became aware of the Central European air fleet to the contact of the two forces. I saw it quite plainly in silhouette against the luminous blue of the northern sky. The Allied airplanes, they were mostly French, came pouring down like a fierce shower upon the middle of the Central European fleet. They looked exactly like a coarser sort of rain. There was a crackling sound. The first sound I heard. It reminded one of the aurora borealis, and I supposed it was an interchange of rifle shots. There were flashes, like summer lightning, and then all the sky became a whirling confusion of battle that was still largely noiseless. Some of the Central European airplanes were certainly charged and overset. Others seemed to collapse and fall and then flare out with so bright a light that it took the edge off one's vision and made the rest of the battle disappear as though it had been snatched back out of sight. And then, while I still peered and tried to shade these flames from my eyes with my hand, and while the men about me were beginning to stir, the atomic bombs were thrown. They made a mighty thunder in the air and fell like Lucifer in the picture, leaving a flaring trail in the sky. The night, which had been pellucid and detailed and eventful, seemed to vanish, to be replaced abruptly by a black background to these tremendous pillars of fire. Hard upon the sound of them came a roaring wind, and the sky was filled with flickering lightnings and rushing clouds. There was something discontinuous in this impact. At one moment I was a lonely watcher in a sleeping world. The next saw every one about me afoot, the whole world awaked and amazed. And then the wind had struck me a buffet, taken my helmet, and swept aside the summer house as a scythe sweeps away the grass. I saw the bombs fall and then watched a great crimson flare leap responsive to each impact, and mountainous masses of red-lit steam and flying fragments clamber up towards the zenith. Against the glare, I saw the countryside for miles standing black and clear. Churches, trees, chimneys. And suddenly, I understood. The Central Europeans had burst the dikes. Those flares meant the bursting, and in a little while the seawater would be upon us. Your brain still refuses to understand that a novel with a ship would still have planes. Ships equals pirates and adventures. I refuse this lore. This does not exist. Dried moss. Holy heck. Thank you so much for those biddies. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you so, so much. Thank you. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. I need to take a sip. That got me too excited and my mouth just got like super dehydrated. Thank you so much. He goes on to tell with a certain prolixity of the steps he took. And all things considered, they were very intelligent steps to meet this amazing crisis. He got his men aboard and hailed the adjacent barges. He got the man who acted as barge engineer at his post and the engines working. He cast loose from his moorings. Then he bethought himself of food and contrived to land 5 men, get in a few dozen cheeses, and ship his men again before the inundation reached them. He is reasonably proud of this piece of coolness. His idea was to take the wave head on and with his engines full speed ahead. And all the while he was thanking heaven he was not in the jam of traffic in the main canal. He rather, I think, overestimated the probable rush of waters. He dreaded being swept away, he explains, and smashed against houses and trees. He does not give any estimate of the time it took between the bursting of the dikes and the arrival of the waters, but it was probably an interval of about 20 minutes or half an hour. He was working now in darkness, save for the light of his lantern, and in a great wind. He hung out head and stern lights. Whirling torrents of steam were pouring up from the advancing waters which had rushed, it must be remembered, through nearly incandescent gaps in the sea defenses, and this vast uprush of vapor soon veiled the flaring centers of explosion altogether. A few dozen, Jesus. Just a few dozen. Gather just a few dozen. That's funny. No, cheeses. Cheeses. The waters came at last, an advancing cascade. It was like a broad roller sweeping across the country. They came with a deep, roaring sound. I had expected a Niagara, but the total fall of the front could not have been much more than 12 feet. Our barge hesitated for a moment, took a dose over her bows. I always get bow and bow mixed up. Took a dose over her bows, and then lifted. I signaled for full speed ahead and brought her up stream. I signaled for full speed ahead and brought her head upstream and held on like grim death to keep her there. There was a wind about as strong as the flood, and I found we were pounding against every conceivable buoyant object that had been between us and the sea. The only light in the world now came from our lamps. The steam became impenetrable at a score of yards from the boat, and the roar of the wind and water cut us off from all remoter sounds. The black, shining waters swirled by, coming into the light of our lamps out of an ebony blackness, and vanishing again into impenetrable black. And on the waters came shapes, came things that flashed upon us for a moment, now a half submerged boat, now a cow, now a huge fragment of a house's timberings, now a muddle of packing cases and scaffoldings. The things clapped into sight like something shown by the opening of a shutter and then bumped shatteringly against us or rushed by us. Once I saw very clearly a man's white face. All the while, a group of laboring, half-submerged trees remained ahead of us, drawing very slowly nearer. I steered a course to avoid them. They seemed to gesticulate a frantic despair against the black steam clouds behind. Once a great branch detached itself and tore, shuddering, by me. We did, on the whole, make headway. The last I saw, before the night swallowed, was almost dead astern of us. End of section 8. So this is fiction, lest we forget. This is fiction, and it just feels so real. The chapters with Barnett's journals feel like we are reading a journal from somebody who has gone through war, which we have read. We've read Company H, and this feels like it could have come from it, which is crazy. Which is crazy. It feels very real. And the fact that like we're in this world, and when we were talking previously with like setting up all of the inventions that humans have gone through, and then we switched to the like fiction portion, the writing style didn't change. So it still like seamlessly brought us into the fiction portions, which makes it feel so real and not fantastical at all. Ooh. Oh no. It's really good writing. Yeah, his word choices are so good. There's a couple times where like the alliteration is just beautiful. Beautiful. Plunges into linen bivouac. Get infamous. Hello. So good to see you. Welcome in. Welcome in. Feeling seasick? Yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it. It means it's working. That's how you know. If you're getting seasick while listening or reading, it means it's working. Coming to port, are we leaving? Are we turning? Only the tides will tell us. Thanks, Master Wells. I hate it. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. I want to go home. Please. Please. Section 9. Morning found Barnett still afloat. The bows of his barge had been badly strained, and his men were bumping or bailing? Bawling? What are you doing? What are you doing in the relays? What are you doing in the relays, huh? What are you doing? I'm looking it up. Bailing. Bailing. Okay. Baby bailing. Baby bailing. All right. Where are we? Of Ray Bradbury? I'm pro Ray Bradbury. Why is that so hard for me to say right now? Yes, I do. I do enjoy his work. The bows of his barge had been badly strained, and his men were bumping or bailing in relays. He had got about a dozen half-drowned people aboard whose boat had capsized near him, and he had 3 other boats in tow. He was afloat, and somewhere between Amsterdam and Alkmaar, but he could not tell where. It was a day that was still half night. Gray waters stretched in every direction under a dark gray sky, and out of the waves rose the upper parts of the houses, in many cases ruined, the tops of trees, windmills, in fact, the upper third of all familiar Dutch scenery. And on it there drifted a dimly seen flotilla of barges, small boats, many overturned, furniture, rafts, timbering, and miscellaneous objects. The drowned were under water that morning. Only here and there did a dead cow or a stiff figure still clinging stoutly to a box or chair or such like buoy hint at the hidden massacre. It was not till the Thursday that the dead came to the surface in any quantity. The view was bounded on every side by a gray mist that closed overhead in a gray canopy. The air cleared in the afternoon, and then, far away to the west, under great banks of steam and dust, the flaming red eruption of the atomic bombs came visible across the waste of water. The cows. No, not the cows. Ray was born in your hometown. Ooh, also known for was Jack Benny. That's cool. Started teaming recently in books. This always have great yes, for the storytelling and world building aspects. Yes. You could take like a master class on specifically this one. They showed flat and sullen through the mist, like London sunsets. They sat upon the sea, says Barnett, like frayed out water lilies of flame. Barnett seems to have spent the morning in rescue work along the track of the canal, in helping people who were adrift, in picking up derelict boats, and in taking people out of imperiled houses. He found other military barges similarly employed, and it was only as the day wore on and the immediate appeals for aid were satisfied that he thought of food and drink for his men, and what course he had better pursue. They had a little cheese, but no water. Orders, that mysterious direction, had at last altogether disappeared. He perceived he had now to act upon his own responsibility. One's sense of a destruction so far-reaching and of a world so altered that it seemed foolish to go in any direction and expect to find things as they had been before the war began. I sat on the quarter-deck with Mylius, my engineer, and Kemp, and 2 others of the non-commissioned officers, and we consulted upon our line of action. We were foodless and aimless. We agreed that our fighting value was extremely small, and that our first duty was to get ourselves in touch with food and instructions again. Whatever plan of campaign had directed our movements was manifestly smashed to bits. Mylius was of opinion that we could take a line westward and get back to England across the North Sea. He calculated that with such a motor barge as ours, it would be possible to reach the Yorkshire coast within 24 hours. But this idea I overruled because of the shortness of our provisions, and more particularly because of our urgent need of water. Every boat we drew near now hailed us for water, and their demands did much to exasperate our thirst. I decided that if we went away to the south, we should reach hilly country, or at least country that was not submerged, and then we should be able to find land, find some stream, drink, and get supplies and news. Many of the barges adrift in the haze about us were filled with British soldiers and had floated up from the Nord Sea Canal, but none of them were any better informed than ourselves of the course of events. Orders had, in fact, vanished out of the sky. Orders made a temporary reappearance late that evening in the form of a megaphone hail from the British torpedo boat, announcing a truce and giving the welcome information that food and water were being hurried down the Rhine and were to be found on the barge flotilla lying over the old Rhine. Hello, welcome in. Priorities. We got the cheese. We're good. We're good. Oh, enjoy your shower. Glad that you got home safe. We will not follow Barnett, however, in the description of his strange overland voyage among trees and houses and churches by Zaandam and between Haarlem and Amsterdam to Leiden. It was a voyage in a red-lit mist, in a world of steamy silhouette, full of strange voices and perplexity, and with every other sensation dominated by a feverish thirst. We sat, he says, in a little huddled group, saying very little, and the men forward were mere knots of silent endurance. Our only continuing sound was the persistent mewing of a cat one of the men had rescued from a floating hayrick near Zaandam. We kept a southward course by a watch chain compass Mylius had produced. I do not think any of us felt we belonged to a defeated army, nor had we any strong sense of the war as the dominating fact about us. Our mental setting had far more of the effect of a huge natural catastrophe. The atomic bomb had dwarfed the international issues to complete insignificance. When our minds wandered from the preoccupations of our immediate needs, we speculated upon the possibility of stopping the use of these frightful explosives before the world was utterly destroyed. For to us it seemed quite plain that these bombs and the still greater power of destruction of which they were the precursors might quite easily shatter every relationship and institution of mankind. "What will they be doing?" asked Mylius. "What will they be doing? It's plain we've got to put an end to war. It's plain things have to be run some way. All this, is impossible." I made no immediate answer. Something, I cannot think what, had brought back to me the figure of that man I had seen wounded on the very first day of actual fighting. I saw again his angry, tearful eyes and that poor, dripping, bloody mess that had been a skillful human hand 5 minutes before, thrust out in indignant protest. "Damned foolery," he said. Stormed and sobbed. "Damned foolery, my right hand, sir, my right hand." My faith had for a time gone altogether out of me. "I think we are too silly," I said to Mylius, "ever to stop war. If we'd had the sense to do it, we should have done it before this. I think this," I pointed to the gaunt, black outline of a smashed windmill that stuck up, ridiculous and ugly above the bloodlit waters. "This is the end." Again, it feels very much like an actual journal in a war. Okay, so we're still following Barnett. We're still with his journal, and he was attacked. Him and his men were being attacked, and so they had to flee where they were. And so they hop on the boats. They grabbed their dozen cheeses. They hopped on the boats. The poor cows, oh, the poor cows, and they're sailing away, and they don't really know where they are. But they come to port. They get off. Their first priority is to find a stream so that they can have water and to find food. And they are in Amsterdam-ish, and they're just seeing the destruction around them. All of the houses have been torn down. A ton of people have drowned and aren't around anymore. And the like windmills have been just like decimated, and they don't know what to do. They're not really skilled at fighting. That's not why they were brought to, that's not why they were brought into the war. And they don't have orders. So they're not people who think things through. They just do what they're told, at least in this context, in this environment. And so they're like, okay, well, how do we stop this? And they come to the realization that it should have been stopped already. Like, it should have been stopped before they even got here, and it's not being stopped. And there probably will never be a stop to war. It'll just keep going and keep getting bigger and keep getting more and more destructive. And I love how it ends, how this section ends. Um, if we'd had the sense to do it, we should have stopped it before this. I think this, I pointed to the gaunt black outline of a smashed window that stuck up, ridiculous and ugly above the blood-lit waters. This is the end. Ooh. Oh. Oh. Oh, that just like punches you right in the gut. It truly does. It truly does. The silence after that is thick. It is a palpable, thick silence. Yeah, that's the reality of war for you. Mm, gross. All right, this is our last section of this chapter. Section 10. But now our history must part company with Frederick Barnet and his barge load of hungry and starving men. For a time in Western Europe, at least, it was indeed as if civilization had come to a final collapse. These crowning buds upon the tradition that Napoleon planted and Bismarck watered, opened and flared like water lilies of flame over nations destroyed, over churches smashed or submerged, towns ruined, fields lost to mankind forever, and a million weltering bodies. Was this lesson enough for mankind? Or would the flames of war still burn amidst the ruins? Neither Barnet nor his companions, it is clear, had any assurance in their answers to that question. Already once in the history of mankind, in America, before its discovery by the whites, an organized civilization had given way to a mere cult of warfare, specialized and cruel, and it seemed for a time to many a thoughtful man as if the whole world was but to repeat on a larger scale this ascendancy of the warrior, this triumph of the destructive instincts of the race. Okay, let's take a pause here because we're saying things about native people that are questionable and aren't great and make me uncomfortable. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Saying that like all of this has happened before in the Americas, before it was discovered by the white people, that they had this culture of warfare and that now it's just been brought on a larger scale. Don't love that. Don't love that. A reminder that this is written in 1914. And even if views are very progressive, they're not as progressive or good as they are now. Ugh. Ugh. Mm. I don't think it did, Master Wells. The subsequent chapters of Barnett's narrative do but supply body to this tragic possibility. He gives a series of vignettes of civilization, shattered, it seemed, almost irreparably. He found the Belgian hills swarming with refugees and desolated by cholera, the vestiges of the contending armies keeping order under a truce without actual battles, but with the cautious hostility of habit and a great absence of plan everywhere. Overhead, airplanes went on mysterious errands, and there were rumors of cannibalism and hysterical fanaticisms in the valleys of the Samoy and the forest region of the eastern Ardennes. There was the report of an attack upon Russia by the Chinese and Japanese, and of some huge revolutionary outbreak in America. The weather was stormier than men had ever known it in those regions, with much thunder and lightning and wild cloud bursts of rain. Okay, end of the section and end of the chapter. Okay, so another really cool stylistic thing. So yes, we are getting different perspectives. Yes, we are specifically following Barnett's journals. And we're getting this like omniscient narrator in between the times and saying like the rest of the chapters of Barnett's journals are like this, instead of us going into detail of them and just kind of summarizing like there's some countries that are under a truce, there's some that are just ravaged by cholera and other diseases, and also every place in the world is dealing with some sort of war, whether it's revolutionary, whether it's countries attacking other countries, and comparing it to a storm. Great, great. And raining, especially after having rained down atomic bombs, in apt comparison, an apt comparison for sure. Mm-mm-mm. 1914 thinking versus now thinking. Yeah, one day in 2138, a streamer will say 2026 thinking was so strange. What do you mean this was okay to say? Yeah, yeah. Which is wild to think, right? Mm-hmm. Grease lightning is coming. Yeah. Yep. Yep. It is. Truly. Mostly harmless obelisk. Raiders, welcome in. How are you? How was your stream? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Welcome in. So good to see you. If you don't know who I am, my name is Moog. I'm a reading streamer. Today we are reading The World Set Free by H.G. Wells, and it's not uplifting, let me tell you. Not uplifting even a little bit. Thank you so much for bringing your community over. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. If you and anybody, Carmilla, I love Carmilla. Oh my heavens. I'm so excited that you were reading Carmilla. I love it so much. Oh, I don't have a copy right here. I have an illustrated copy, and I love it so much. It's so good. Oh, I'm so happy that you were reading that. I got too excited and I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yes. If you and anybody who came along with you need to raid and run, please feel free to do so. Do a little self check in, see what you need water, standing up, stretching, whatever it is. We also would love to have you stay if you can. We love lurkers as well. No pressure, no need to chat if that's not your vibe. Co reading with your wife on stream, both very impressed with it. It's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. How far did you get into it? Mm-mm-mm. Oh, man. Oh, man. My chat just went crazy. Sorry if you're talking to me and I can't see. Okay, there we go. It's palpable thinking. Halfway today. Ooh, and you're gonna finish it next week? Mm. It's surprisingly short. It really is. And also, it needs way more recognition and hype. So I'm so happy that you're reading it and that you're enjoying it. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. I was actually gonna take a bio break. Right as you were coming in. It's a little early for me to take a bio break, but I've been just slamming water today. So it's gonna be quick. It's gonna be a quick little bio break. I might nibble some cheese. And when we get back, we'll start on chapter 3. All right. We're I just needed to get to the 3rd chapter. Quick break. Quick break. And also, like, I feel weird with the break being so early. We're back. We're back. We're back. All right. Are we settled? Did we have our cheese? Did we do all of the things that we wanted to do on our break? Okay. Chapter the 3rd. So, this is how the butter battle ends, right? Well, kind of. I did. I did. Thank you for asking. It's Chihuahua cheese. Um, the next chapter is called Ending of War. So, yes. So, yes. Chapter the third, The Ending of War. Section 1. On the mountainside above the town of Brissago, and commanding two long stretches of Lake Maggiore, looking eastward to Bellinzona and southward to Luino, there is a shelf of grass meadows which is very beautiful in springtime, with a great multitude of wild flowers. Dread Moss, it was so good to see you. Thank you so much again for those biddies. Have a great time. We'll catch you later. More particularly is this so in early June, when the slender asphodel St. Bruno's lily, with its spike of white blossom, is in flower. To the westward of this delightful shelf there is a deep and densely wooded trench, a great gulf of blue some mile or so in width, out of which arise great precipices very high and wild. Above the asphodel fields the mountains climb in rocky slopes to solitudes of stone and sunlight that curve round and join that wall of cliffs in one common skyline. This desolate and austere background contrasts very vividly with the glowing serenity of the great lake below, with the spacious view of fertile hills and roads and villages and islands to south and east, and with the hotly golden rice flats of the Valmagia to the north. And because it was a remote and insignificant place, far away out of the crowding tragedies of that year of disaster, away from burning cities and starving multitudes, bracing and tranquilizing and hidden, it was here that there gathered the conference of rulers that was to arrest, if possible, before it was too late, the debacle of civilization. Here, brought together by the indefatigable energy of that impassioned humanitarian, Leblanc, the French ambassador at Washington, the chief powers of the world were to meet in a last desperate conference to save humanity. You ate dog cheese? No. It's cheese. It's cheese. It's Chihuahua cheese. It's very good. It's very good. I got slices of it, and it's really good and yummy. It's not dog cheese, I promise. Leblanc was one of those ingenious men whose lot would have been insignificant in any period of security, but who have been caught up in an immortal role in history by the sudden simplification of human affairs through some tragical crisis, to the measure of their simplicity. Such a man was Abraham Lincoln, and such was Garibaldi, and Leblanc, with his transparent childish innocence, his entire self-forgetfulness, came into this confusion of distrust and intricate disaster with an invisible appeal for the manifest sanities of the situation. His voice, when he spoke, was full of remonstrance. He was a little bald, spectacled man, inspired by that intellectual idealism which has been one of the peculiar gifts of France to humanity. He was possessed of one clear persuasion: the war must end, and that the only way to end war was to have but one government for mankind. He brushed aside all other considerations. At the very outbreak of war, so soon as the two capitals of the belligerents had been wrecked, he went to the president in the White House with this proposal. He made it as if it was a matter of course. He was fortunate to be in Washington and in touch with that gigantic childishness which was the characteristic of the American imagination. For the Americans also were among the simple peoples by whom the world was saved. He won over the American president and the American government to his general ideas. At any rate, they supported him sufficiently to give him a standing with the more skeptical European governments, and with this backing, he set to work. It seemed the most fantastic of enterprises, to bring together all the rulers of the world and unify them. He wrote innumerable letters. He sent messages. He went desperate journeys. He enlisted whatever support he could find. No one was too humble for an ally or too obstinate for his advances. Through the terrible autumn of the last wars, this persistent little visionary in spectacles must have seemed rather like a hopeful canary twittering during a thunderstorm. And no accumulation of disasters daunted his conviction that they would be ended. For the whole world was flaring then into a monstrous phase of destruction. Power after power about the armed globe sought to anticipate attack by aggression. They went to war in a delirium of panic, in order to use their bombs first. China and Japan had assailed Russia and destroyed Moscow. The United States had attacked Japan. India was in anarchistic revolt with Delhi, a pit of fire spouting death and flame. The redoubtable king of the Balkans was mobilizing. It must have seemed plain at last to every one in those days that the world was slipping headlong to anarchy. By the spring of 1959, from nearly 200 centers, and every week added to their numbers, roared the unquenchable crimson conflagrations of the atomic bombs. The flimsy fabric of the world's credit had vanished. Industry was completely disorganized, and every city, every thickly populated area, was starved or trembled on the verge of starvation. Most of the capital cities of the world were burning. Millions of people had already perished, and over great areas government was at an end. Humanity had been compared by one contemporary writer to a sleeper who handles matches in his sleep and wakes to find himself in flames. For many months it was an open question whether there was to be found throughout all the race the will and intelligence to face these new conditions and make even an attempt to arrest the downfall of the social order. For a time, the war spirit defeated every effort to rally the forces of preservation and construction. LeBlanc seemed to be protesting against earthquakes, and as likely to find a spirit of reason in the crater of Etna. Even though the shattered official governments now clamored for peace, bands of irreconcilables and invincible patriots, usurpers, adventurers, and political desperadoes were everywhere in possession of the simple apparatus of the disengagement of atomic energy and the initiation of new centers of destruction. The stuff exercised an irresistible fascination upon a certain type of mind. Why should anyone give in while he can still destroy his enemies? Surrender? While there is still a chance of blowing them to dust? The power of destruction which had once been the ultimate privilege of government was now the only power left in the world, and it was everywhere. There were few thoughtful men during that phase of blazing waste who did not pass through such moods of despair as Barnett described, and declares with him, "This is the end." And all the while, Leblanc was going to and fro with glittering glasses and an inexhaustible persuasiveness, urging the manifest reasonableness of his view upon ears that ceased presently to be inattentive. Never at any time did he betray a doubt that all this chaotic conflict would end. No nurse during a nursery uproar was ever so certain of the inevitable ultimate peace. From being treated as an amiable dreamer, he came by insensible degrees to be rewarded as an extravagant possibility. Then he began to seem even practicable. The people who listened to him in 1958 with a smiling impatience were eager before 1959 was 4 months old to know just exactly how he thought might be done. Just exactly what he thought might be done. He answered with the patience of a philosopher and the lucidity of a Frenchman. He began to receive responses of a more and more hopeful type. He came across the Atlantic to Italy, and there he gathered in the promises for this Congress. This is a long paragraph, but I want to say, hi, Lucas. Good to see you. Good to see you. They are going to go on YouTube. Yes. YouTube is extremely far behind, though. It's very far behind because we read here 2 or 3 times a week and YouTube videos only go up once a week, but it will go up. And the VODs, I think it starts with the first of, it does, the first reading of Niels Klim. The VODs are now also on YouTube as well. They're unlisted, but if you go to the playlist for live streams, they're there. You can see them all. You just have to click into the playlist and you can see them all. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. A random power outage. I hate that. While you were in the shower? That's terrible. Kin Infamous. No. No. You got more memories in Project Hail Mary. We are aware that we're in a spaceship. One step at a time. One step at a time. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm. You wanna wait, what are you helping with? What's happening? With editing? I'm not editing on YouTube. No, no. No, no, no. They're just going up there in the meantime. No, no, no. Slowly remembering the dead crew. Yeah. Yeah, that's sad. Yeah. It gets sadder. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. It gets sadder. Mm-mm. Oh, with uploading? No. Okay. We started simultaneously streaming on Twitch and on YouTube. So right now, as I'm talking to y'all on Twitch, I'm also talking to everybody over on YouTube. So then it just stays there. So it's all good. It's all good. Where are these unlisted gems? Here, I will link you the playlist for it. It's relatively new, so there's not too many videos on it. But that's the playlist for it. And like all of the reading sprints are public. So those ones are easily seen, but the other ones you just have to click into it to see it. We're over there. We're over there. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. Where are we? He chose those high meadows above Brazzago for the reasons we have stated. We must get away, he said, from old associations. He set to work requisitioning material for his conference, with an assurance that was justified by the replies. With a slight incredulity, the conference, which was to begin a new order in the world, gathered itself together. LeBlanc summoned it without arrogance. He controlled it by virtue of an infinite humility. Men appeared upon those upland slopes with the apparatus for wireless telegraphy. Telegraphy? Telegraphy. Where does the stress go in that word? How to pronounce telegraphy? That they both feel silly. They both feel silly when I say them. Telegraphy. Oh, you couldn't hear that.
Telegraphy.
Okay, that's right. Telegraphy. Great. Great. Oof. Telegraphy. Where are we? Men appeared upon those upland slopes with the apparatus for wireless telegraphy. Others followed with tents and provisions. A little cable was flung down to a convenient point upon the Locarno road below. LeBlanc arrived, sedulously directing every detail that would affect the tone of the assembly. He might have been a courier in advance rather than the originator of the gathering. And then there arrived, some by the cable, most by airplane, a few in other fashions, the men who had been called together to confer upon the state of the world. It was to be a conference without a name. 9 monarchs, the president of 4 republics, a number of ministers and ambassadors, powerful journalists, and such like prominent and influential men took part in it. There were even scientific men, and that world-famous old man, Holston, came with the others to contribute his amateur statecraft to the desperate problem of the age. Only LeBlanc would have dared so to summon figureheads and powers and intelligence, or have had the courage to hope for their agreement. Hmm. End of section 1. Okay, so we need to have an end of the war because everybody is fighting and nobody wants to surrender, because why surrender when you can just annihilate your competition? But everybody is at war. And so we have this one guy who is like, we need like a council. The only way to do this is for us all to have the same government. So he goes to the US and convinces the president that it's a good idea, and then they go over to Europe to try and convince some of those guys that it's a good idea. And so they do have a meeting, and in the meeting, amongst all of these world leaders, are also like a scientist and just like this really smart guy, Holston. And we'll see where we go from there, I guess. I mean, I guess. We'll see. We'll see. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Mm. Really want to stay, but your phone battery. Oh, because of the power outage. Yes, yes, yes. Totally. Totally. Can Infamous, if you have to dip out, please. Please feel free. I totally understand. Are these idiots just reinventing the UN? That is exactly what's happening. That's exactly what is happening. We're just creating the UN right now. All right, section 2 is a long one. So let's have a sip. You know we're going to need it. You know we are. Section 2. And one at least of those who were called to this conference of governments came to it on foot. This was King Egbert, the young king of the most venerable kingdom of Europe. He was a rebel, and had always been of deliberate choice a rebel against the magnificence of his position. He affected long pedestrian tours and a disposition to sleep in the open air. He came now over the pass of Sta Maria Maggiore, and by boat up the lake to Brissago. Thence he walked up the mountain, a pleasant path set with oaks and sweet chestnut. For provision on the walk, for he did not want to hurry, he carried with him a pocket full of bread and cheese. A certain small retinue that was necessary to his comfort and dignity upon occasions of state he sent on by the cable car, and with him walked his private secretary, Furman, a man who had thrown up the professorship of world politics in the London School of Sociology economics, and political science to take up these duties. Furman was a man of strong rather than rapid thought. He had anticipated great influence in his new position, and after some years he was still only beginning to apprehend how largely his function was to listen. Originally, he had been something of a thinker upon international politics, an authority upon tariffs and strategy, and a valued contributor to various of the higher organs of public opinion. But the atomic bombs had taken him by surprise, and he had still to recover completely from his pre-atomic opinions and the silencing effect of those sustained explosives. Stephen, hello, welcome in. Good to see you. The king's freedom was the trammels of etiquette. The king's freedom from the trammels of etiquette was very complete, in theory, and he abounded in theory. His manners were purely democratic. It was by sheer habit and inadvertency that he permitted Furman, who had discovered a rucksack in a small shop in the town below, to carry both bottles of beer. The king had never, as a matter of fact, carried anything for himself in his life, and he had never noted that he did not do so. "We will have nobody with us," he said, "at all. We will be perfectly simple." So Furman carried the beer. As they walked up, it was the king made the pace rather than Furman. They talked of the conference before them, and Furman, with a certain want of assurance that would have surprised him in himself in the days of his professorship, sought to define the policy of his companion. "In its broader form, sir," said Furman, "I admit a certain plausibility in this project of Leblanc's. But I feel that although it may be advisable to set up some sort of general control for international affairs, a sort of Hague court with extended powers, that is no reason whatever for losing sight of the principles of national and imperial autonomy." "Furman," said the king, "I am going to set my brother kings a good example." Furman intimated a curiosity that veiled a dread. "By chucking all that nonsense," said the king. He quickened his pace as Furman, who was already a little out of breath, betrayed a disposition to reply. "I am going to chuck all that nonsense," said the king, as Furman prepared to speak. "I am going to fling my royalty and empire on the table, and declare at once I don't mean to haggle. It's haggling about rights has been the devil in human affairs for always. I am going to stop this nonsense." Furman halted abruptly. "But, sir," he cried. The king stopped 6 yards ahead of him and looked back at his advisor's perspiring visage. "Do you really think, Furman, that I am here as an infernal politician to put my crown and my flag and my claims and so forth in the way of peace? That little Frenchman is right. You know he is right as well as I do. Those things are over. We kings and rulers and representatives have been at the very heart of the mischief. Of course, we imply separation, and of course, separation means the threat of war, and of course, the threat of war means the accumulation of more and more atomic bombs. The old game's up, but, I say, we mustn't stand here, you know? The world waits. Don't you think the old game's up, Furman?" Furman adjusted a strap, passed a hand over his wet forehead, and followed earnestly. "I admit, sir," he said to a receding back, "that there has to be some sort of hegemony, some sort of amphideionic council. There's got to be one simple government for all the world," said the king over his shoulder. "But as for a reckless, unqualified abandonment, sir—" "Bang!" cried the king. Furman made no answer to this interruption. but a faint shadow of annoyance passed across his heated features. Yesterday, said the king, by way of explanation, the Japanese very nearly got San Francisco. I hadn't heard, sir. The Americans ran the Japanese airplane down into the sea, and there the bomb got busted. Under the sea, sir? Yes. Submarine volcano. The steam is in sight of the Californian coast. It was as near as that. And with things like this happening, you want me to go up this hill and haggle? Consider the effect of that upon my imperial cousin, and on all the others. He will haggle, sir. Not a bit of it, said the king. But, sir, LeBlanc won't let him. Furman halted abruptly and gave a vicious pull at the offending strap. Sir, he will listen to his advisers, he said, in a tone that in some subtle way seemed to implicate his master with the trouble of the knapsack. The king considered him. We will go just a little higher, he said. I want to find this unoccupied village they spoke of, and then we will drink that beer. It can't be far. We will drink the beer and throw away the bottles. And then, Furman, I shall ask you to look at things in the more generous light. Because, you must. Where Sebastian and King Triton live? Disgraceful. He turned about, and for some time the only sound they made was the noise of their boots upon the loose stones of the way and the irregular breathing of Firmin. At length, as it seemed to Firmin, or quite soon, as it seemed to the king, the gradient of the path diminished. The way widened out, and they found themselves in a very beautiful place indeed. It was one of those upland clusters of sheds and houses that are still to be found in the mountains of North Italy. Buildings that were used only in the high summer, and which it was the custom to leave locked up and deserted through all the winter and spring, and up to the middle of June. The buildings were of a soft-toned gray stone, buried in rich green grass, shadowed by chestnut trees and lit by an extraordinary blaze of yellow broom. Never had the king seen broom so glorious. He shouted at the light of it, for it seemed to give out more sunlight even than it received. He sat down impulsively on a lichenous stone, tugged out his bread and cheese, and bade Furman thrust the beer into the shaded weeds to cool. The things people miss, Furman, he said, who go up into the air in ships. Furman looked about him with an ungenial eye. You see it at its best, sir, he said, before the peasants come here again and make it filthy. It would be beautiful anyhow, said the king. Superficially, sir, said Furman, but it stands for a social order that is fast vanishing away. Indeed, judging by the grass between the stones and the huts, I am inclined to doubt if it is in use even now. I suppose, said the king, they would come up immediately the hay on this flower meadow is cut. It would be those slow, creamy-colored beasts, I expect, one sees on the roads below, and swarthy girls with red handkerchiefs over their black hair. It is wonderful to think how long that beautiful old life lasted. In the Roman times and long ages before ever the rumor of the Romans had come into these parts, men drove their cattle up into these places as the summer came on. How haunted is this place! There have been quarrels here, hopes. Children have played here and lived to be old crones and old gaffers and died, and so it has gone on for thousands of lives. Lovers, innumerable lovers, have caressed amidst this golden broom. He meditated over a busy mouthful of bread and cheese. We ought to have brought a tankard for that beer, he said. Furman produced a folding aluminum cup, and the king was pleased to drink. I wish, sir, said Furman suddenly, I could induce you to at least delay your decision. It is no good talking, Firmin, said the king. My mind's as clear as daylight. Sire, protested Firmin, with his voice full of bread and cheese and genuine emotion, have you no respect for your kingship? The king paused before he answered with unwonted gravity. It's just because I have, Firmin, that I won't be a puppet in this game of international politics. He regarded his companion for a moment and then remarked, Kingship? What do you know of kingship, Firmin? Yes, cried the king to his astonished counselor. For the first time in my life, I am going to be a king. I am going to lead, and lead by my own authority. For a dozen generations, my family has been a set of dummies in the hands of their advisors. Advisors. And now I am going to be a real king, and I am going to abolish, dispose of, finish the crown to which I have been a slave. But what a world of paralyzing shams this roaring stuff has ended. The rigid old world is in the melting pot again, and I, who seemed to be no more than the stuffing inside a regal robe, I am a king among kings. I have to play my part at the head of things and put an end to blood and fire and idiot disorder. But, sir, protested Firmin, this man LeBlanc is right. The whole world has got to be a republic, one and indivisible. You know that, and my duty is to make that easy. A king should lead his people. You want me to stick on their backs like some old man of the sea. Today must be a sacrament of kings. Our trust for mankind is done with and ended. We must part our robes among them. We must part our kingship among them, and say it to them all, now the king in every one must rule the world. Have you no sense of the magnificence of this occasion? You want me, Firmin, you want me to go up there and haggle like a damned little solicitor for some price, some compensation, some qualification. Firmin shrugged his shoulders and assumed an expression of despair. Meanwhile, he conveyed, one must eat. For a time neither spoke, and the king ate and turned over in his mind the phrases of the speech he intended to make to the conference. By virtue of the antiquity of his crown, he was to preside, and he intended to make his presidency memorable. Reassured of his eloquence, he considered the despondent and sulky Firmin for a space. Firmin, he said, you have idealized kingship. It has been my dream, sir, said Firmin, sorrowfully, to serve. At the levers, Firmin, said the king. You are pleased to be unjust, said Firmin, deeply hurt. I am pleased to be getting out of it, said the king. Oh, Firmin, he went on, have you no thought for me? Will you never realize that I am not only flesh and blood, but an imagination, with its rights? I am a king in revolt against that fetter they put upon my head. I am a king awake. My reverend grandparents never in all their august lives had a waking moment. They loved the job that you advisors, gave them. They never had a doubt of it. It was like giving a doll to a woman who ought to have a child. They delighted in processions and opening things and being read addresses to and inviting triplets and nonagerians, and all that sort of thing. Incredibly. They used to keep albums of cuttings from all the illustrated papers showing them at it. And if the press cutting parcels grew thin, they were worried. It was all that ever worried them. But there is something atavistic in me. I hark back to unconstitutional monarchs. They christened me too retrogressively. I think. I wanted to get things done. I was bored. I might have fallen into vice. Most intelligent and energetic princes do. But the palace precautions were unusually thorough. I was brought up in the purest court the world has ever seen, alertly pure. So I read books, Vermin, and went about asking questions. The thing was bound to happen to one of us sooner or later. Perhaps, too. Very likely I'm not vicious. I don't think I am. He reflected. No, he said. Veerman cleared his throat. I don't think you are, sir, he said. You prefer... He stopped short. He had been going to say talking, and he substituted ideas. The world of royalty, the king went on. In a little while, no one will understand it any more. It will become a riddle. Among other things, it was a world of perpetual best clothes. Everything was in its best clothes for us, and usually wearing bunting. With a cinema watching to see we took it properly. If you are a king, Fearman, and you go and look at a regiment, it instantly stops whatever it is doing, changes into full uniform and presents arms. When my august parents went in a train, the coal in the tender used to be white. It did, Fearman, and if coal had been white instead of black, I have no doubt the authorities would have blackened it. That was the spirit of our treatment. People were always walking about with their faces to us. One never saw anything in profile. One got an impression of a world that was insanely focused on ourselves. And when I began to poke my little questions into the Lord Chancellor and the Archbishop and all the rest of them about what I should see if people turned round, the general effect I produced was that I wasn't by any means displaying the royal tact they had expected of me. He meditated for a time. And yet, you know, there is something in the kingship, Fairman. It stiffened up my august little grandfather. It gave my grandmother a kind of awkward dignity even when she was cross, and she was very often cross. They both had a profound sense of responsibility. My poor father's health was wretched during his brief career. Nobody outside the circle knows just how he screwed himself up to things. My people expect it, they used to say, of this tiresome duty or that. Most of the things they made him do were silly. It was part of a bad tradition. There was nothing silly in the way he set about them. The spirit of kingship is a fine thing, Fairman. I feel it in my bones. I do not know what I might not be if I were not a king. I could die for my people, Fearman, and you couldn't. No, don't say that you could die for me, because I know better. Don't think I forget my kingship, Fearman. Don't imagine that. I am a kingly king by right divine. The fact that I am also a chattering young man makes not the slightest difference to that. But the proper textbook for kings, Fairman, is none of the court memoirs and Welt politic book you would have me read. It is old Fraser's Golden Bough. Have you read that, Fairman? Fairman had. Those were the authentic kings. In the end, they were cut up and a bit given to everybody. They sprinkled the nations with kingship. Fairman turned himself around and faced his royal master. What do you intend to do, sir? He asked. If you will not listen to me, what do you propose to do this afternoon? The king flicked crumbs from his coat. Manifestly, war has to stop forever, Fairman. Manifestly, this can only be done by putting all the world under one government. Our crowns and flags are in the way. Manifestly, they must go. Yes, sir, interrupted Firmin. But what government? I don't see what government you get by a universal abdication. Well, said the king, with his hands about his knees, we shall be the government. The conference, exclaimed Firmin. Well, who else? Asked the king simply. It's perfectly simple, he added to Firmin's tremendous silence. But, cried Firmin, you must have sanctions. Will there be no form of election, for example? Why should there be? Asked the king with intelligent curiosity. The consent of the governed. Firmin, we are just going to lay down our differences and take over government, without any election at all, without any sanction. The governed will show their consent by silence. If any effective opposition arises, we shall ask it to come in and help. The true sanction of kingship is the grip upon the scepter. We aren't going to worry people to vote for us. I'm certain the mass of men does not want to be bothered with such things. We'll contrive a way for anyone interested to join in. That's quite enough in the way of democracy. Perhaps later, when things don't matter, we shall govern all right, Firmin. Government only comes difficult when the lawyers get hold of it, and since these troubles began, the lawyers are shy. Indeed, come to think of it, I wonder where all the lawyers are. Where are they? A lot, of course, were bagged. Some of the worst ones when they blew up my legislature. You never knew the late Lord Chancellor. Necessities bury rights and create them. Lawyers live on dead rights, disinterred. We've done with that way of living. We won't have more law than a code can cover, and beyond that government will be free. Before the sun sets today, Firmin, trust me, we shall have made our abdications, all of us, and declared the world republic, supreme and indivisible. I wonder what my august grandmother would have made of it. All my rights. And then we shall go on governing. What else is there to do? All over the world, we shall declare that there is no longer mine or thine, but ours. China, the United States, 2/3 of Europe will certainly fall in and obey. They will have to do so. What else can they do? Their official rulers are here with us. They won't be able to get together any sort of idea of not obeying us. Then we shall declare that every sort of property is held in trust for the Republic. But, sir, cried Firmin, suddenly enlightened, has this been arranged already? My dear Firmin, do you think we have come here, all of us, to talk at large? The talking has been done for half a century, talking and writing. We are here to set the new thing, the simple, obvious, necessary thing going. He stood up. Firmin, forgetting the habits of a score of years, remained seated. Well, he said at last, and I have known nothing. The king smiled very cheerfully. He liked these talks with Firmin. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. All right, so we have the idea of a one governing entity over all of the world. That's the only way that all of these wars are going to end, is if they're all unified under the same government. And so we're following a king and his advisor as they're on their way to the discussion. And the advisor is like worried. He's like, well, what is the plan? What's going to happen? You're no longer going to be king. Like, I'm not going to know what to do. Like, my life dreams have been to serve the king. You need to have a plan. You need to be able to haggle. And the king's like, nonsense. I'm not going to haggle. This is what's going to happen. We're already going to be the rulers. The rulers are going to be the people who are there, and everybody just has to fall in line. Like, the people who don't have representation are so small and insignificant, they can't do anything. And he lists the people that are going to be there, 2/3 of Europe, China, Japan, the US, them. it's already decided. And Furman was like, well, what about like a vote? Like, shouldn't people vote to have, their rulers? And he's like, why would we vote? What's the point in doing that? No, people don't want to be bothered with having votes over who is their leader. Absolutely not. Coming from a king, of course, that's what he's going to say. Haggling is for peasants, Fearman. We're not going to do that. So, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea. So, we've gone from everybody at war because of atomic energy to having this one government that doesn't sound like it's going to be great for everybody. I don't know. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. What could possibly go wrong? You're right. You're right. We have all the bombs, so we'll be fine. Ugh. Ugh. You hate to see it. Section 3. That conference upon the Brissago Meadow was one of the most heterogeneous collections of prominent people that has ever met together. Principalities and powers, stripped and shattered until all their pride and mystery were gone, met in a marvelous new humility. Here were kings and emperors whose capitals were lakes of flaming destruction, statesmen whose countries had become chaos, scared politicians and financial potentates. Here were leaders of thought and learned investigators dragged reluctantly to the control of affairs. I'm pretty sure we have an anniversary of the last time a king tried to tell us what to do. We do. We do. Pretty pertinent. I don't. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, right? It'll be fine. Nobody's ever argued or had different ideals, or it'll be fine. Hmm. Although there were 93 of them, LeBlanc's conception of the head men of the world, they had all come to the realization of the simple truths that the indefatigable LeBlanc had hammered into them. And, drawing his resources from the King of Italy, he had provisioned his conference with a generous simplicity quite in accordance with the rest of his character, and so at last was able to make his astonishing and entirely rational appeal. He had appointed King Egbert the president. He believed in this young man so firmly that he completely dominated him, and he spoke himself as a secretary might speak of the president's left hand, and evidently did not realize himself that he was telling them all exactly what they had to do. He imagined he was merely recapitulating the obvious features of the situation for their convenience. He was dressed in ill-fitting, white silk clothes, and he consulted a dingy little packet of notes as he spoke. They put him out. He explained that he had never spoken from notes before, but that this occasion was exceptional. And then King Egbert spoke, as he was expected to speak, and Leblanc's spectacles moistened at that flow of generous sentiment, most amiably and lightly expressed. "We haven't to stand on ceremony," said the king. "We have to govern the world. We have always pretended to govern the world, and here is our opportunity." "Of course," whispered Leblanc, nodding his head rapidly. "Yes, of course." "The world has been mashed up, and we have to put it on its wheels again," said King Egbert. "And it is the simple common sense of this crisis for all to help and none to seek advantage, Is that our tone or not? The gathering was too old and seasoned and miscellaneous for any great displays of enthusiasm. But that was its tone, and with an astonishment that somehow became exhilarating, it began to resign, repudiate, and declare its intentions. Fearman, taking notes behind his master, heard everything that had been foretold among the yellow broom come true. With a queer feeling that he was dreaming, he assisted at the proclamation of the world state and saw the message taken out to the wireless operators to be throbbed all around the habitable globe. And next, said the King Egbert, with a cheerful excitement in his voice, we have to get every atom of carolinum and all the plant for making it into our control. There it is. There it is. We will have all control over the bombs. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Irving was not alone in his incredulity. Not a man there who was not a very amiable, reasonable, benevolent creature at bottom. Some had been born to power and some had happened upon it. Some had struggled to get it, not clearly knowing what it was and what it implied, but none was irreconcilably set upon its retention at the price of cosmic disaster. Their minds had been prepared by circumstances and sedulously cultivated by LeBlanc, and now they took the broad, obvious road along which King Egbert was leading them, with a mingled conviction of strangeness and necessity. It's a foolproof plan. Just trust me. It'll be fine. Nothing to worry about. Ah! Things went very smoothly. The King of Italy explained the arrangements that had been made for the protection of the camp from any fantastic attack. A couple of thousand of airplanes, each carrying a sharpshooter, guarded them. And there was an excellent system of relays, and at night all the sky would be searched by scores of lights, and the admirable LeBlanc gave luminous reasons for their camping just where they were, and going on with their administrative duties forthwith. He knew of this place, because he had happened upon it when holiday-making with Madame LeBlanc 20 years and more ago. There is very simple fare at present, he explained, on account of the disturbed state of the countries about us. But we have excellent fresh milk, good red wine, beef, bread, salad, and lemons. In a few days I hope to place things in the hands of a more efficient caterer. The members of the New World government dined at 3 long tables on trestles, and down the middle of these tables LeBlanc, in spite of the barrenness of his menu, had contrived to have a great multitude of beautiful roses. There was similar accommodation for the secretaries and attendants at a lower level down the mountain. The assembly dined as it had debated, in the open air. And over the dark crags to the west the glowing June sunset shone upon the banquet. There was no presidency now among the 93, and King Egbert found himself between a pleasant little Japanese stranger in spectacles and his cousin of Central Europe, and opposite a great Bengali leader and the President of the United States of America. Beyond the Japanese was Holston, the old chemist, and LeBlanc was a little way down the other side. The king was cheerfully talkative, and abounded in ideas. He fell presently into an amiable controversy with the American, who seemed to feel a lack of impressiveness in the occasion. It was ever the transatlantic tendency, due, no doubt, to the necessity of handling public questions in a bulky and striking manner, to overemphasize and over-accentuate, and the president was touched by his national failing. He suggested now that there should be a new era, starting from that day, as the first day of the first year. The king demurred. From this day forth, sir, man enters upon his heritage, said the American. Man, said the king, is always entering upon the heritage. You Americans have a peculiar weakness for anniversaries, if you will forgive my saying so. Yes, I accuse you of a lust for dramatic effect. Everything is happening always, but you want to say this, or this is the real instant in time, and subordinate all the others to it. The American said something about an epoch-making day. But surely, said the king, you don't want us to condemn all humanity to a worldwide annual 4th of July forever and evermore, on account of this harmless, necessary day of declarations. No conceivable day could ever deserve that. You do not know, as I do, the devastations of the memorable. My poor grandparents were rubricated. The worst of these huge celebrations is that they break up the dignified succession of one's contemporary emotions. They interrupt. They set back. Suddenly out come the flags and fireworks, and the old enthusiasms are furbished up, and it's sheer destruction of the proper thing that ought to be going on. Sufficient unto the day is the celebration thereof. Let the dead past bury its dead. You see, in regard to the calendar, I am for democracy, and you are for aristocracy. All things I hold are august, and have a right to be lived through on their merits. No day should be sacrificed on the grave of departed events. What do you think of it, Wilhelm? For the noble, yes. All days should be noble. Exactly my position, said the king, and felt pleased at what he had been saying. And then, since the American pressed his idea, the king contrived to shift the talk from the question of celebrating the epoch they were making to the question of the probabilities that lay ahead. Here, everyone became diffident. They could see the world unified and at peace, but what detail was to follow from that unification they seemed indisposed to discuss. This diffidence struck the king as remarkable. He plunged upon the possibilities of science. All the huge expenditure that had hitherto gone into unproductive naval and military preparations must now, he declared, place research upon a new footing. Where one man worked, we will have 1,000, he appealed to Holsten. We have only begun to peep into these possibilities, he said. You, at any rate, have sounded the vaults of the Treasury House. They are unfathomable, smiled Holsten. Man, said the American, with a manifest resolve to justify and reinstate himself after the flickering contradictions of the king. Man, I say, is only beginning to enter upon his heritage. Tell us some of the things you believe we shall presently learn. Give us an idea of the things we may presently do, said the king to Holsten. Holsten opened the vistas. Science, the king cried presently, is the new king of the world. Our view, said the president, is that sovereignty resides with the people. No, said the king, the sovereign is a being more subtle than that, and less arithmetical. Neither my family nor your emancipated people. It is something that floats about us, and above us, and through us. It is that common impersonal will and sense of necessity of which science is the best understood and most typical aspect. It is the mind of the race. It is that which has brought us here, which has bowed us all to its demands. He paused and glanced down the table at Leblanc, and then reopened at his former antagonist. There is a disposition, said the king, to regard this gathering as if it were actually doing what it appears to be doing, as if we 90-odd men of our own free will and wisdom were unifying the world. There is a temptation to consider ourselves exceptionally fine fellows and masterful men and all the rest of it. We are not. I doubt if we should avenge out as anything abler than any other casually selected body of 90-odd men. We are no creators. We are consequences. We are salvagers or salvagees. The thing today is not ourselves, but the wind of conviction that has blown us hither. The American had to confess he could hardly agree with the king's estimate of their average. Holston, perhaps, and one or two others might lift us a little, the king conceded. But the rest? His eyes flitted once more towards Leblanc. Look at Leblanc, he said. He's just a simple soul. There are hundreds and thousands like him. I admit a certain dexterity, a certain lucidity, but there is not a country town in France where there is not a Leblanc or so to be found about 2 o'clock in its principal cafe. It's just that he isn't complicated or supermanish or any of those things that has made all he has done possible. But in happier times, don't you think, Wilhelm, he would have remained just what his father was? Very clean, very accurate, very honest. And on holidays he would have gone out with Madame Leblanc and her knitting in a punt with a jar of something gentle, and have sat under a large, reasonable, green-lined umbrella, and fished very neatly and successfully for gudgeon. The president and the Japanese prince in spectacles protested together. If I do him an injustice, said the king, it is only because I want to elucidate my argument. I want to make it clear how small are men and days, and how great is man in comparison. End of section 3. This is going to go well. This is going to go well. This is going to go great. I don't think any of us have to worry about what's going to happen for the rest of the book. They've got it under control. All right, so there's 90-something men, all men, that are the leaders of these various countries. And they all get together and they are discussing what's to be done. And King Egbert is seen as like one of the more promising ones in the eyes of LeBlanc. So he makes sure that King Egbert is able to speak, and he does speak, and he says basically the same things that he's told Fearman, that like they're the ones that are going to be leading, they're going to be the ones doing the charge, blur, 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 blur. And something else that he has said is that they need to control all of the nuclear energy, of the atomic energy. They needed to control everything, and they need nobody else to even have the ability to create more of it. Because this is going to stop the wars, obviously. Obviously. And everybody is like aghast, but they're also like, well, okay. All right. Yeah, I get it. Okay, sure, sure, sure. And then they're all at a table and eating. They're having a meal together. Nomad. Thank you so much. 34 months. My heavens. My word. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. They're having a meal and they're all like interspersed. There's not like a seating chart. And so King Egbert is sitting across the table from the president of the US. There's also a Japanese dignitary, a prince, and I forgot somebody else. But they're talking and they're getting into like kind of like silly little arguments. Like the US president is like, we should commemorate that this is the first day, that this is the first day of a new beginning. And King Egbert is like, you dumb dumb, we can't have, but you want another 4th of July? They just get in the way of actual work. The things that we're doing are very important. And what, we're just gonna just have a halt, get out the fireworks and the little flags and wave them about. And it's like, okay, okay, King Egbert, everybody loves a party. What is wrong with you? But all right, sure. And so they're going back and forth and they're like arguing a little bit, not really seeing eye to eye because King Egbert is like so strong with his opinions and his assertions. And he, towards the end, was like, well, who do you think is actually going to rule? There's 90 something of us. You don't really think that 90 something of us are going to be able to like actually do anything, do you? It's going to be like 4 of us, and everybody else is just a dummy. Everybody else just a little dum dum. Everybody, and the 4 of us, which I'm assuming he's including himself, are going to be the actual leaders because we're the ones who are actually smart. Like, take LeBlanc, for instance. No offense, but look at him. He's a little schmuck. My dude, what are you talking about? What are you going on about? It's gonna be fine. I don't think that there's a reason why we shouldn't trust them. They definitely should have all of the atomic energy. They should. They should. They seem level-headed and have everybody's interest in mind for sure. For sure. Red Autumn, hello. So good to see you. Welcome in. You silly, silly goose. Mm. Mm. Ooh, yes, book update. More memories. Remember our daughter name. Yes. These weird little alien algae. Yes. And we're in a different solar system. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are, Ember. Yeah, we are. I love these little updates from you. Oof. All right. Ooh, this section is short. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. Section 4. So it was King Egbert talked at Brissago after they had proclaimed the unity of the world. So it was. I can't take a guy named Egbert seriously. What? No? No? No, I want you to share your excitement with me. I want it. It's me, Egbert. Every evening after that, the assembly dined together and talked at their ease and grew accustomed to each other and sharpened each other's ideas. And every day they worked together and really for a time believed that they were inventing a new government for the world. They discussed a constitution. But there were matters needing attention too urgently to wait for any constitution. They attended to these incidentally. The constitution it was that waited. It was presently found convenient to keep the constitution waiting indefinitely as King Egbert had foreseen, and meanwhile, with an increasing self-confidence, that council went on governing. On this first evening of all the council's gatherings, after King Egbert had talked for a long time and drunken and praised very abundantly the simple red wine of the country that LeBlanc had procured for them, He gathered about him a group of congenial spirits and fell into a discourse upon simplicity, praising it above all things and declaring that the ultimate aim of art, religion, philosophy, and science alike was to simplify. He instanced himself as a devotee to simplicity, and Leblanc he instanced as a crowning instance of the splendor of this quality. Upon that, they all agreed. When at last the company about the tables broke up, the king found himself brimming over with a peculiar affection and admiration for Leblanc. He made his way to him and drew him aside and broached what he declared was a small matter. There was, he said, a certain order in his gift that, unlike all other orders and decorations in the world, had never been corrupted. It was reserved for elderly men of supreme distinction, the acuteness of whose gifts was already touched to mellowness, and it had included the greatest names of every age so far as the advisors of his family had been able to ascertain them. At present, the king admitted, these matters of stars and badges were rather obscured by more urgent affairs. For his own part, he had never set any value upon them at all. But a time might come when they would be at least interesting. And in short, he wished to confer the order of merit upon Leblanc. His sole motive in doing so, he added, was his strong desire to signalize his personal esteem. He laid his hand upon the Frenchman's shoulder as he said these things, with an almost brotherly affection. Leblanc received this proposal with a modest confusion that greatly enhanced the king's opinion of his admirable simplicity. He pointed out that, eager as he was to snatch at the proffered distinction, it might at present stage appear invidious, and he therefore suggested that the conferring of it should be postponed until it could be made the crown and conclusion of his services. The king was unable to shake this resolution, and the two men parted with expressions of mutual esteem. The king then summoned Firmin in order to make a short note of a number of things that he had said during the day. But after about 20 minutes' work, the sweet sleepiness of the mountain air overcame him, and he dismissed Firmin and went to bed and fell asleep at once, and slept with extreme satisfaction. He had had an active, agreeable day. End of section 4. Okay, Egbert, some sneaky things. Some sneaky things are happening. So there have been talks of a constitution in their organization, but they don't have time for that right now. You know, they have more pressing matters that they have to deal with. So they've put the constitution aside for just for now, so that they can focus on these other issues that are more emergency issues. And in the meanwhile, while they're not working on the Constitution, King Egbert is continuing to take charge and rule and assert his ideas and how things should be run. Interesting. Interesting. Just observations. No assumptions that anything nefarious is going on. Why would you think that? Why would you think that? Why? Why would you think that? We did that during the French Revolution, and then they started guillotining everyone. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Nothing wrong is gonna happen. They have all the control of the nuclear power, and they have no constitution for now. Okay? I'm sure they're gonna write it very soon. No, he's not allowed at Red Autumn. He's not allowed to join. Here we go. Section 5. The establishment of the new order that was thus so humanly begun was, if one measure it if one measures it by the standard of any preceding age, a rapid progress. The fighting spirit of the world was exhausted. Only here or there did fierceness linger. For long decades, the combative side in human affairs had been monstrously exaggerated by the accidents of political separation. This now became luminously plain. An enormous proportion of the force that sustained armaments had been nothing more aggressive than the fear of war and warlike neighbors. It is doubtful if any large section of the men actually enlisted for fighting ever at any time really hungered and thirsted for bloodshed and danger. That kind of appetite was probably never very strong in the species after the savage stage was past. The army was a profession in which killing had become a disagreeable possibility rather than an eventful certainty. If one reads the old newspapers and periodicals of that time, which did so much to keep militarism alive, one finds very little about glory and adventure and a constant harping on the disagreeableness of invasion and subjugation. In one word, militarism was funk. The belligerent resolution of the armed Europe of the 20th century was the resolution of a fiercely frightened sheep to plunge. And now that its weapons were exploding in its hands, Europe was only too eager to drop them and abandon this fancied refuge of violence. For a time, the whole world had been shocked into frankness. Nearly all the clever people who had hitherto sustained the ancient belligerent separations had now been brought to realize the need for simplicity of attitude and openness of mind. And in this atmosphere of moral renaissance, there was a little attempt to get negotiable advantages out of resistance to the new order. Human beings are foolish enough, no doubt, but few have stopped to haggle in a fire escape. The council had its way with them. The band of patriots who seized the laboratories and arsenal just outside Osaka and tried to rouse Japan to revolt against inclusion in the Republic of Mankind, found they had miscalculated the national pride and met the swift vengeance of their own countrymen. That fight in the arsenal was a vivid incident in this closing chapter of the history of war. To the last, the patriots were undecided whether, in the event of defeat, they would explode their supply of atomic bombs or not. They were fighting with swords outside the iridium doors, and the moderates of their number were at bay and on the verge of destruction. Only 10, indeed, remained unwounded when the Republicans burst in to the rescue. End of section 5. All right, section 5, we get a little glimmer into Japan and how these patriots are wait, are the patriots the ones going in? I got confused. Hold on. No. The we're in Japan. I like lost where we were. We're in Japan and they have their supply of atomic energy. And the world government is what we'll call them now, but the world government is trying to take it away, and the world government had underestimated the patriotism that these people had, and that they don't really want to join, the all-seeing, all-powerful, one world, one nation type deal. And so they're fighting back, and it's not looking great. Is there going to be a winning side? Are we just creating more wars within this large war? Maybe. Maybe. And it's also interesting that there was the mention of, like, if you read newspapers back in the time, they don't really talk about the, like, all of the death that happened. So interesting that, like, the press is also being not tinkered with, not tampered with, but like smoothed over so that the history, if you look back, also doesn't really show the violence that's happening. Everything's fine. It's just fine. Case of defeated, just blow everything up. It seems reasonable. It's reasonable. Subjugated. Yes. Sometimes words just don't make it to my noggin fast enough. Not as many people died, and there's totally isn't a deadly war going on. Or if it is, it's not that bad. It's just a little guy. It's just a little guy. It's fine. It's fine. Just brush it under the rug. Everything's great. Section 6. One single monarch held out against the general acquiescence in the new rule, and that was that strange survival of medievalism, the Slavic fox, the king of the Balkans. He debated and delayed his submissions. He showed an extraordinary combination of cunning and temerity in his evasion of the repeated summonses from Brissago. He affected ill health and a great preoccupation with his new official mistress, for his semi-barbaric court was arranged on the best romantic models. His tactics were ably seconded by Dr. Pestovich, his chief minister. Failing to establish his claims to complete independence, King Ferdinand Charles annoyed the conference by a proposal to be treated as a protected state. Finally, he professed an unconvincing submission and put a mass of obstacles in the way of the transfer of his national officials to the new government. In these things he was enthusiastically supported by his subjects, still for the most part in illiterate peasantry, passionately, if confusedly, patriotic, and so far with no practical knowledge of the effect of atomic bombs. More particularly, he retained control of all the Balkan airplanes. For once, the extreme naivete of Leblanc seems to have been mitigated by duplicity. He went on with the general pacification of the world as if the Balkan submission was made in absolute good faith, and he denounced the disbandment of the force of airplanes that hitherto guarded the council at Brissago upon the approaching 15th of July. But instead, he doubled the number upon duty on that eventful day, and made various arrangements for their disposition. He consulted certain experts, and when he took King Egbert into his confidence, there was something in his neat and explicit foresight that brought back to that ex-monarch's mind his half-forgotten fantasy of Leblanc as a fisherman under a green umbrella. About 5 o'clock in the morning of the 17th of July, one of the outer sentinels of the Brissago fleet, which was soaring unobtrusively over the lower end of the Lake of Garda, sighted and hailed a strange airplane that was flying westward, and, failing to get a satisfactory reply, set its wireless apparatus talking and gave chase. A swarm of consorts appeared very promptly over the westward mountains, and before the unknown airplane had sighted Como, it had a dozen eager attendants closing in upon it. Its driver seems to have hesitated, dropped down among the mountains, and then turned southward in flight, only to find an intercepting biplane sweeping across his bows. He then went round into the eye of the rising sun and passed within 100 yards of his original pursuer. The sharpshooter therein opened fire at once, and showed an intelligent grasp of the situation by disabling the passenger first. The man at the wheel must have heard his companion cry out behind him, but he was too intent on getting away to waste even a glance behind. Twice after that, he must have heard shots. He let his engine go. He crouched down, and for 20 minutes he must have steered in the continual expectation of a bullet. It never came, and when at last he glanced round, 3 great planes were close upon him, and his companion, thrice hit, lay dead across his bombs. His followers manifestly did not mean either to upset or shoot him, but inexorably they drove him down. At last, he was curving and flying 100 yards or less over the level fields of rice and maize. Ahead of him, and dark against the morning sunrise, was a village with a very tall and slender campanile and a line of cable bearing metal standards that he could not clear. He stopped his engine abruptly and dropped flat. He may have hoped to get at the bombs when he came down, but his penniless pursuers drove right over him and shot him as he fell. 3 other airplanes curved down and came to rest amidst grass close by the smashed machine. Their passengers descended and ran, holding their light rifles in their hands towards the debris of the 2 dead men. The coffin-shaped box that had occupied the center of the machine had broken, and 3 black objects, each with 2 handles like the ears of a pitcher, lay peacefully amidst the litter. Mary Jane, hello, good to see you. These objects were so tremendously important in the eyes of their captors that they disregarded the 2 dead men who lay bloody and broken amidst the wreckage as they might have disregarded dead frogs by a country pathway. "By God," cried the first. "Here they are!" "And unbroken," said the second. "I've never seen the things before," said the first. "Bigger than I thought," said the second. The third comer arrived. He stared for a moment at the bombs and then turned his eyes to the dead man with a crushed chest who lay in a muddied place among the green stems under the center of the machine. "One can take no risks," he said, with a faint suggestion of apology. I was thinking the same thing. That's what she said. I was thinking the same thing. The other 2 now also turned to the victims. "We must signal," said the first man. A shadow passed between them and the sun, and they looked up to see the airplane that had fired the last shot. "Shall we signal?" came a megaphone hail. "3 bombs," they answered together. "Where do they come from?" asked the megaphone. The 3 sharpshooters looked at each other and then moved towards the dead men. One of them had an idea. "Signal first," he said, "while we look." They were joined by their aviators for the search, and all 6 men began to hunt that was necessarily brutal in its haste, for some indication of identity. They examined the men's pockets, their blood-stained clothes, the machine, the framework. They turned the bodies over and flung them aside. There was not a tattoo mark. Everything was elaborately free of any indication of its origin. "We can't find out," they called at last. "Not a sign?" "Not a sign." "I'm coming down," said the man overhead. End of section 6. All right. Okay. The king of the Balkans is not about this. He's like, I'm not going to join. I'm not going to join your silly little gathering. I'm not going to do that. I was trying to think of a word, didn't work. I'm not going to do that. I don't trust any of you. I'm not going to give you my bombs. I'm not just going to, let you have free reign with them and we're just going to do whatever you want. No. But he doesn't say that he's not going to do that. He agrees to be there and then it's like, "Oh, no, I can't do that." Ugh. But can you like have us be like a protected state? And LeBlanc is like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we can do that." And like they're they're not listening. They're not listening. Wouldn't you know it? They're not listening. Sworn, hello. So good to see you. It's giving cultish. It is. It is. You would mock our gathering? Here we are. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. All right. The next section is longer, so this will be our last one for the night, which means time for a sip. It's fine. Section 7. Mostly harmless, Obelisk. Thank you so much for the follow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. And thanks for sticking around, too. Section 7. The Slavic fox stood under a metal balcony in his picturesque Art Nouveau palace that gave upon the precipice that overhung his bright little capital. And beside him stood Pestovitch, grizzled and cunning, and now full of an ill-suppressed excitement. Behind them, the window opened into a large room, richly decorated in aluminum and crimson enamel, across which the king, as he glanced ever and again over his shoulder with a gesture of inquiry, could see through the two open doors of a little azure-walled antechamber, the wireless operator in the turret, working at his incessant transcription. Two pompously uniformed messengers waited listlessly in his apartment. The room was furnished with a stately dignity, and had in the middle of it a big green baize-covered table, with the massive white metal ink pots and antiquated sandboxes natural to a new but romantic monarchy. It was the king's council chamber, and about it now, in attitudes of suspended intrigue, stood the half-dozen ministers who constituted his cabinet. They had been summoned for 12 o'clock. But still at 12:30 the king loitered in the balcony and seemed to be waiting for some news that did not come. The king and his minister had talked at first in whispers. They had fallen silent, for they found little now to express except a vague anxiety. Away there on the mountainside, where the white metal roofs of the long farm buildings beneath which the bomb factory and the bombs were hidden, the chemists who had made all these for the king had died suddenly after the declaration of Brissago. Nobody knew of that store of mischief now but the king and his adviser, and 3 heavily faithful attendants. The aviators who waited now in the midday blaze with their bomb-carrying machines and their passenger bomb-throwers in the exercising grounds of the motorcyclist barricade below were still in ignorance of the position of the ammunition they were presently to take up. It was time they started if the scheme was to work as Pestovitch had planned it. It was a magnificent plan. It aimed at no less than the empire of the world. The government of idealists and professors away there at Brissago was to be blown to fragments, and then east, west, north, and south those airplanes would go, swarming over a world that had disarmed itself, to proclaim Ferdinand Charles the new Caesar, the master, lord of the earth. It was a magnificent plan. But the tension of this waiting for news of the success of the first blow was considerable. The Slavic fox was of a pallid fairness. He had a remarkably long nose, a thick, short mustache, and small blue eyes that were a little too near together to be pleasant. It was his habit to worry his mustache with short, nervous tugs whenever his restless mind troubled him. And now this motion was becoming so incessant that it irked Pestovich beyond the limits of endurance. "I will go," said the minister, "and see what the trouble is with the wireless. They give us nothing, good or bad." Left to himself, the king could worry his mustache without stint. He leant his elbows forward on the balcony and gave both of his long white hands to the work, so that he looked like a pale dog gnawing a bone. Suppose they caught his men. What should he do? Suppose they caught his men. The clocks in the light gold-capped belfries of the town below presently intimated the half hour after midday. Of course, he and Pestovich had thought it out. Even if they had caught those men, they were pledged to secrecy. Probably they would be killed in the catching. One could deny, anyhow. Deny and deny. And then he became aware of half a dozen little shining specks very high in the blue. Pestovich came out to him presently. "The government messages, sire, have all dropped into cipher," he said. "I have set a man—" "Look!" interrupted the king, and pointed upward with a long, lean finger. Pestovich followed that indication and then glanced for one questioning moment at the white face before him. "We have to face it out, sire," he said. For some moments they watched the steep spirals of the descending messengers, and then they began a hasty consultation. They decided that to be holding a council upon the details of an ultimate surrender to Brissago was as innocent-looking a thing as the king could well be doing, and so, when at last the ex-king Egbert, whom the council had sent as its envoy, arrived upon the scene, he discovered the king almost theatrically posed at the head of his counselors in the midst of his court. The door upon the wireless operators was shut. The ex-king from Brissago came like a draught through the curtains, and attendance that gave a wide margin to King Ferdinand's state, and the familiar confidence of his manner belied a certain hardness in his eye. Firmin trotted behind him, and no one else was with him. And as Ferdinand Charles rose to greet him, there came into the heart of the Balkan king again that same chilly feeling that he had felt upon the balcony, and it passed at the careless gesture of his guest. For surely anyone might outwit this foolish talker who, for a mere idea and at the command of a little French rationalist in spectacles, had thrown away the most ancient crown in all the world. One must deny. Deny. And then slowly, and quite tiresomely, he realized that there was nothing to deny. His visitor, with an amiable ease, went on talking about everything in debate between himself and Brissago, except, could it be that they had been delayed? Could it be that they had to drop for repairs and were still uncaptured? Could it be that even now, while this fool babbled, they were over there among the mountains, heaving their deadly charge over the side of the airplane? Strange hopes began to lift the tail of the Slavic fox again. What was the man saying? One must talk to him anyhow until one knew. At any moment, the little brass door behind him might open with the news of Brissago blown to atoms. Then it would be a delightful relief to the present tension to arrest this chatterer forthwith. He might be killed, perhaps. What? The king was repeating his observation. They have a ridiculous fancy that your confidence is based on the possession of atomic bombs. King Ferdinand Charles pulled himself together. He protested. Quite so, said the ex-king, quite so. What grounds? The ex-king permitted himself a gesture and the ghost of a chuckle, why the devil should he chuckle? Practically none, he said. But of course, with these things one has to be so careful. And then again, for an instant, something, like the faintest shadow of derision, gleamed out of the envoy's eyes and recalled that chilly feeling to King Ferdinand's spine. Some kindred depression had come to Pestovich, who had been watching the drawn intensity of Firmin's face. He came to the help of his master, who, he feared, might protest too much. A search, said the king, an embargo on our airplanes. Only a temporary expedient, said the ex-king Egbert, while the search is going on. The king appealed to his council. The people will never permit it, sire, said a bustling little man in a gorgeous uniform. You'll have to make them, said the ex-king, genially addressing all the councillors. King Ferdinand glanced at the closed brass door through which no news would come. When would you want to have this search? The ex-king was radiant. We couldn't possibly do it until the day after tomorrow, he said. Just the capital? Where else? Asked the ex-king more cheerfully. For my own part, said the ex-king confidentially, I think the whole business ridiculous. Who would be such a fool as to hide atomic bombs? Nobody. Certain hanging if he's caught. Certain, and almost certain blowing up if he isn't. But nowadays I have to take orders like the rest of the world, and here I am. The king thought he had never met such detestable geniality. He glanced at Pestovich, who nodded almost imperceptibly. It was well, anyhow, to have a fool to deal with. They might have sent a diplomat. They might have sent a diplomat. Of course, said the king. I recognize the overpowering force and a kind of logic in these orders from Brissago. I knew you would, said the ex-king with an air of relief, and so let us arrange. They arranged with a certain informality. No Balkan airplane was to adventure into the air until the search was concluded. And meanwhile, the fleets of the world government would soar and circle in the sky. The towns were to be placarded with offers of reward to anyone who would help in the discovery of atomic bombs. You will sign that, said the ex-king. Why? To show that we aren't in any way hostile to you. Pestovich nodded yes to his master. And then, you see, said the ex-king, in that easy way of his, we'll have a lot of men here, borrow help from your police, and run through all your things. And then everything will be over. Meanwhile, if I may be your guest... When presently Pestovich was alone with the king again, he found him in a state of jangling emotions. His spirit was tossing like a wind-whipped sea. One moment he was exalted and full of contempt for that ass and his search. The next he was down in a pit of dread. They will find him, Pestovich, and he'll hang us. Hang us. The king put his long nose into his counselor's face. That grinning brute wants to hang us, he said, and hang us he will, if we give him a chance. But all our modern state civilization, do you think there's any pity in that crew of godless, vivisecting prigs? Cried this last king of romance. Do you think, Pestovich, They understand anything of a high ambition or a splendid dream? Do you think that our gallant and sublime adventure has any appeal to them? Here, here am I, the last and greatest and most romantic of the Caesars. And do you think they will miss the chance of hanging me like a dog if they can, killing me like a rat in a hole? And that renegade, he who was once an anointed king. Sounds like something a man with a funny mustache would do. Dat what? I know. I know. I thought it was funny too. I hate that sort of eye that laughs and keeps hard, said the king. I won't sit here and be caught like a fascinating rabbit, said the king in conclusion. We must shift those bombs. Risk it, said Pestovich. Leave them alone. No, said the king. Shift them near the frontier. Then, while they watch us here, they will always watch us here now. We can buy an airplane abroad and pick them up. The king was in a feverish, irritable mood all that evening, but he made his plans nevertheless with infinite cunning. They must get the bombs away. There must be a couple of atomic hay lorries. The bombs could be hidden under the hay. Pestovich went and came, instructing trusty servants, planning and replanning. The king and the ex-king talked very pleasantly of a number of subjects. All the while, at the back of King Ferdinand Charles's mind fretted the mystery of his vanished airplane. There came no news of its capture, and no news of its success. At any moment, all that power at the back of his visitor might crumble away and vanish. It was past midnight when the king, in a cloak and slouch hat that might equally have served a small farmer or any respectable middle-class man, slipped out from an inconspicuous service gate on the eastward side of his palace into the thickly wooded gardens that sloped in a series of terraces down to the town. Pestovich and his guard valet Peter, both wrapped about in a similar guise, came out among the laurels that bordered the pathways and joined him. It was a clear, warm night, but the stars seemed unusually little and remote because of the airplanes, each trailing a searchlight that drove hither and thither across the blue. One great beam seemed to rest on the king for a moment as he came out of the palace. Then instantly and reassuringly it had swept away. But while they were still in the palace gardens, another found them and looked at them. They see us, cried the king. They make nothing of us, said Pestovich. The king glanced up and met a calm, round eye of light that seemed to wink at him and vanish, leaving him blinded. The three men went on their way. Near the little gate in the garden railings that Pestovich had caused to be unlocked, the king paused under the shadow of an ilex and looked back at the place. It was very high and narrow, a 20th century rendering of medievalism in steel and bronze and sham stone and opaque glass. Against the sky, it splashed a confusion of pinnacles. High up in the eastward wing were the windows of the apartments of the ex-King Egbert. One of them was brightly lit now, and against the light a little black figure stood very still and looked out upon the night. The king snarled. He little knows how we slip through his fingers, said Pestovich. And as he spoke, they saw the ex-king stretch out his arms slowly, like one who yawns, knuckle his eyes, and turn inward, no doubt, to his bed. Down through the ancient, winding back streets of his capital hurried the king, and at an appointed corner a shabby atomic automobile waited for the three. It was a hackneyed carriage of the lowest grade, with dinted metal panels and deflated cushions. The driver was one of the ordinary drivers of the capital, but beside him sat the young secretary of Pestovich, who knew the way to the farm where the bombs were hidden. The automobile made its way through the narrow streets of the old town, which were still lit and uneasy, for the fleet of airships overhead had kept the cafes open and people abroad. Over the great new bridge, and so by straggling outskirts of the country. And all through his capital the king who hoped to outdo Caesar sat back and was very still, and no one spoke. And as they got out into the dark country, they became aware of the searchlights wandering over the countryside like the uneasy ghosts of giants. The king sat forward and looked at these flitting whitenesses, and every now and then peered up to see the flying ships overhead. "I don't like them," said the king. Presently one of these patches of moonlight came to rest about them and seemed to be following their automobile. The king drew back. "The things are confoundedly noiseless," said the king. "It's like being stalked by lean white cats." He peered again. "That fellow is watching us," he said. And then suddenly he gave way to panic. "Pestovich," he said, clutching his minister's arms. "They are watching us. I'm not going through with this. They are watching us. I'm going back." Pestovich remonstrated. "Tell him to go back," said the king, and tried to open the window. For a few moments there was a grim struggle in the automobile, a gripping of wrists and a blow. "I can't go through with it," repeated the king. "I can't go through with it." "But they'll hang us," said Pestovich. "Not if we were to give up now, not if we were to surrender the bombs. It is you who brought me into this." At last, Pestovich compromised. There was an inn perhaps half a mile from the farm. They could alight there, and the king could get brandy and rest his nerves for a time. And if he still thought fit to go back, he could go back. "See," said Pestovich, "the light has gone again." The king peered up. "I believe he's following us without a light," said the king. Uh-oh. Rick, hello, good to see you. Welcome in. Being stalked by the cat, very unnerving. In the little old dirty inn, the king hung doubtful for a time, and was for going back and throwing himself on the mercy of the council. "If there is a council," said Pestovich. "By this time your bombs may have settled it. But if so, these infernal airplanes would go. They might not know yet. But, Pestovich, why couldn't you do all this without me?" Pestovich made no answer for a moment. I was for leaving the bombs in their place," he said at last, and went to the window. About their conveyance shone a circle of bright light. Pestovich had a brilliant idea. "I will send my secretary out to make a kind of dispute with the driver. Something that will make them watch up above there. Meanwhile, you and I and Peter will go out by the back way and up by the hedges to the farm." It was worthy of his subtle reputation, and it answered passing well. In 10 minutes they were tumbling over the wall of the farmyard, wet, muddy, and breathless, but unobserved. But as they ran towards the barn, the king gave vent to something between a groan and a curse, and all about them shone the light, and passed. But had it passed at once, or lingered for just a second? "They didn't see us," said Peter. "I don't think they saw us," said the king, and stared as the light went swooping up the mountainside, hung for a second about a hayrick, and then came pouring back. "In the barn!" cried the king. He bruised his shin against something, and then all three men were inside the huge, steel-girded barn in which stood the 2 motor hay lorries that were to take the bombs away. Kurt and Abel, the 2 brothers of Peter, had brought the lorries thither in daylight. They had the upper half of the loads of hay thrown off, ready to cover the bombs, so soon as the king should show the hiding place. "There's a sort of pit here," said the king. "Don't light another lantern. This key of mine releases a ring." For a time, scarcely a word was spoken in the darkness of the barn. There was the sound of a slab being lifted and then of feet descending a ladder into a pit, then whispering, and then heavy breathing as Kurt came struggling up with the first of the hidden bombs. "We shall do it yet," said the king. And then he gasped. "Curse that light! Why in the name of heaven didn't we shut the barn door?" For the great door stood wide open, and all the empty, lifeless yard outside and the door and 6 feet of the floor of the barn were in the blue glare of an inquiring searchlight. "Shut the door, Peter," said Pestovich. "No," cried the king, too late. As Peter went forward into the light, "Don't show yourself," cried the king. Kurt made a step forward and plucked his brother back. For a time all 5 men stood still. It seemed that light would never go, and then abruptly it was turned off, leaving them blinded. "Now," said the king uneasily. "Now shut the door." "Not completely," cried Pestovich. "Leave a chunk for us to go out by." It was hot work, shifting those bombs, and the king worked for a time like a common man. Kurt and Abel carried the great things up, and Peter brought them to the carts, and the king and Pestovich helped him to place them among the hay. They made as little noise as they could. "Shh, shh, shh," cried the king. "What's that?" But Kurt and Abel did not hear, and came blundering up the ladder with the last of the load. "Shh, shh." Peter ran forward to them with a whispered remonstrance. Now they were still. The barn door opened a little wider, and against the dim blue light outside, they saw the black shape of a man. "Anyone here?" he asked, speaking with an Italian accent. The king broke into a cold perspiration. Then Pestovich answered. "Only a poor farmer loading hay," he said, and picked up a huge hay fork and went forward softly. "You load your hay at a very bad time and in very bad light," said the man at the door, peering in. "Have you no electric light here?" And suddenly he turned on an electric torch. Electric torch equals porch, obviously. Then suddenly he turned on an electric torch, and as he did so, Pestovich sprang forward. "Get out of my barn!" he cried, and drove the full fork at the intruder's chest. He had a vague idea that so he might stab the man to silence. But the man shouted loudly as the prongs pierced him and drove him backward, and instantly there was a sound of feet running across the yard. "Bombs!" cried the man upon the ground, struggling with the prongs in his hand, and as Pestovich staggered forward into view and the force of his own thrust, he was shot through the body by one of the 2 newcomers. The man on the ground was badly hurt, but plucky. "Bombs!" he repeated, and struggled up into a kneeling position and held his electric torch full upon the face of the king. "Shoot them!" he cried, coughing and spitting blood, so that the halo of light around the king's head danced about. For a moment, in that shivering circle of light, the 2 men saw the king kneeling up in the cart, and Peter on the barn floor beside him. The old fox looked at them sideways, snared, a white-faced, evil thing. And then, as with a faltering, suicidal heroism, he leant forward over the bomb before him. They fired together and shot him through the head. The upper part of his face seemed to vanish. "Shoot them!" cried the man who had been stabbed. "Shoot them all!" And then his light went out, and he rolled over with a groan at the feet of his comrades. But each carried a light of his own, and in another moment everything in the barn was visible again. They shot Peter, even as he held up his hands in sign of surrender. Kurt and Abel, at the head of the ladder, hesitated for a moment, and then plunged backward into the pit. If we don't kill them, said one of the sharpshooters, they'll blow us up to rags. They've gone down that hatchway. Come on. Here they are. Hands up, I say. Hold your light while I shoot. End of section 7. That was a big one. That was a big one, and that was heavy. All right. So the King of the Balkans does not want to be part of this. He does not want to be part of the world government, and he thinks that it's dumb. And he doesn't think that there should be like a one world government. He doesn't even think that it should like that one group of people should have all of the atomic bombs. That's silly. He doesn't like that. He wants to rule his own country. He wants to have his own bombs. And so his plan is to send unmarked planes, unmarked bombs, unmarked men over and to bomb Brissago, which is where the meeting is happening. And so they do, and they get shot down, and they're not marked. And so they don't know where they came from. And at the same time, the King of the Balkans is waiting for word to see if he is going to, like, if the mission is successful, if they've been captured. He doesn't know. And while he is waiting, the ex-king, King Egbert, arrives. And he's like, hey, so we need to have a look around. Like, we need to just see what's going on. Like, there might have been something happening, but like we just want to check everything out, you know? Like, you don't have any bombs here, right? You don't have any of those. You gave them away, right? Yeah. You're not hiding any because that's like illegal. That's like a bad thing. Um okay, cool. So we'll search tomorrow then. And the king is panicking because, yes, he does have bombs, and yes, he attempted to blow all of them up that were part of the world government. And so he's trying to move them. And so it's the middle of the night. And there's this whole thing that's happening. And it is very intense. There's searchlights going from the world government trying to find it, to see if there's any bombs that are around that are being hidden. The king and his advisor are like scurrying about, going about, and they like, I'm imagining that they're definitely doing some like ninja rolls, you know, to make sure that they don't get caught in the light. But they go into this barn, and there's 3 brothers that are helping them move the bombs over. And they need to be really, really careful because the searchlights are like right there. And so there's like, oh, close the door, close the door. Wait, don't close the door all the way because we need to make sure that we can get out. And as they're doing all of this, they're like moving up into the hayloft. They're trying to hide things. They're not covered right now. And somebody appears at the door and is like, hey, somebody here? And the advisor quickly thinks is like, yep, just some lowly farmer here with my hay. And the guy at the door is like, oh, okay. That's a little weird that you're here in the dark. Why? A fox raid? Welcome in. Fox, what were you reading? Hello. Hello, hi. How was your stream? So good to see you. Mm-mm-mm. Welcome in, Raiders. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Gentle tap. Thank you so much. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. My name is Moog. For those of you who do not know, I also read. We are reading The World Set Free by H.G. Wells. It's pretty bleak. It's pretty bleak, not gonna lie. Thank you so much for the gift sub to Fox. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. More follows. Everybody welcome in. Thank you so much. You were a rebel. Disregarding the copyright. Wow. Wow. I'm surprised alarms didn't go off. The scandal. Oh, you just called the authorities. Thank you. Somebody had to. here. If we're not already following Gentle Fox, hello. Please go do so. Please go do so. An amazing ASM artist, also a reader, a beautiful, fabulous, rich voice. I was trying to think of words. Go. Do it. Do it. We um we just had a very intense part in the book. Our Slavic king has been hiding atomic bombs from the world government. And the world government was like, "You don't have anything, right?" And they're like, "No, of course not." So then they tried to move it and they got caught. Oopsie. Oopsie. Yeah. So, yeah, they're hiding in this barn, and a guy comes up and is like, "What are you guys doing here? Anybody here?" And the advisor to the king comes over and is like, "Hey, hey, what are you doing in the dark?" Or like, "I'm just a farmer. I'm here moving hay about like farmers do." And the guy's like, "Oh, okay, that's a weird time to do that. And in the dark, don't you have any lights?" And the visitor who shows up like turns on a torch and sees the bombs and starts shouting, and the advisor stabs him with a pitchfork but doesn't kill him, just wounds him. And the guy is still shouting, like, "There's bombs here, you need to get over here." And his compatriots come on over and they kill everybody there. And that's how that section ended. Terrible. Terrible. It is H.G. Wells. Yes, it is. This is our fourth H.G. Wells that we've read. Mm, mm. Muse, how long have you been here? I didn't see you sneak in. Hello. Hi, Muse. Good to see you. Are we hyping? We in a hype train? That's exciting. Choo choo. Choo choo. He is chanting bombs like a cheerleader. Yeah. All because the king didn't want to join the world government. All because of that. Don't know this one? Tiptoe into early sci-fi. Tend to favor Verne. That's fair. That's fair. Well, and like this one is written in a way that is terrifying in that it's something that definitely could happen. It was written in 1914 and it predicted atomic war. So, where's the fiction? Mm-mm-mm. Terrible. Pepper, hello. It's so good to see you. Hi. Vern over Jules? Doc Brown may have something to say about that. Vern. 10,000 Leagues? What other Verns? Do you have a favorite Vern? Jules Verne. Let's see. Oh, Around the World in 80 Days. Oh, and Journey to the Center of the Earth. I forgot that he did both of those. Okay. He just loves going on adventures, huh? He really does. Mm-mm-mm. 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 You showed up like 10 minutes ago. Oh, you snuck in. You snuck in. Mysterious Island. Okay. The secret sequel to The Secret Sequel. Oh my gosh. Ember, I missed it. Thank you. Your update. Yes, yes, yes. Freaked out about our situation, understandably. Yes. Found a room with computers, more memories about studying in a special lab. Still not sure why we're on a spaceship alone. And we found out the algae is actually mostly water and is fuel for the ship. And we're a science teacher of junior high kids. Yes, you're finding out so much. You're finding out so much. And lost his pennies. He did. He did. All right. Well, since we had raiders, let's read one more section. It's a shorter one. We'll read one more section and then we'll call it. Because we can't, like, it was sad ending. We need to see the fallout of it. Oh, that's sad to say after, you know, all this bombing stuff. Missed so much in this story. World government, it's terrible. The stream ends at 2 a.m. tonight. No. just because we keep getting raids and distractions. No way. No, Ember, I appreciate it. Thank you. I did not see your message at all. 3 a.m. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Take it easy, Fox. Thank you again so much for bringing your community over. I appreciate you. Oh gosh, we took too long. Okay, we'll do one more section. One more section. Section 8. It was still quite dark when his valet and Firmin came together and told the ex-king Egbert that the business was settled. He started up into a sitting position on the side of his bed. Did he go out? Asked the ex-king. He is dead, said Firmin. He was shot. The ex-king reflected. That's about the best thing that could have happened, he said. Where are the bombs? In that farmhouse on the opposite hillside? Why, the place is in sight. Let us go. I'll dress. Is there anyone in the place, Firmin, to get us a cup of coffee? Through the hungry twilight of the dawn, the ex-king's automobile carried him to the farmhouse where the last rebel king was lying among his bombs. The rim of the sky flashed, the east grew bright, and the sun was just rising over the hills when King Egbert reached the farmyard. There he found the hay lorries drawn out from the barn with the dreadful bombs still packed upon them. A couple of score of aviators held the yard, and outside a few peasants stood in a little group and stared, ignorant as yet of what had happened. Against the stone wall of the farmyard, 5 bodies were laying neatly side by side, and Pestovich had an expression of surprise on his face, and the king was chiefly identifiable by his long white hands and his blonde mustache. The wounded aeronaut had been carried down to the inn, and after the ex-king had given directions in what manner the bombs were to be taken to the new special laboratories above Zurich, where they could be unpacked in an atmosphere of chlorine, he turned to these 5 still shapes. Their 5 pairs of feet stuck out with a curious, stiff inanimity. What else is there to do? He said in answer to some internal protest. I wonder, Firmin, if there are any more of them. Bombs, sir? Asked Firmin. No, such kings. The pitiful folly of it, said the ex-king, following his thoughts. Firmin, as an ex-professor of international politics, I think it falls to you to bury them. There? No, don't put them near the well. People will have to drink from that well. Bury them over there, some way off in the field. Oh, I'm so glad that we ended that section tonight. End of the section and end of the chapter. Okay, perfect. That worked out way better. Okay, so we gotta wrap this up. That's what the ex-king. Okay, so they wake up the ex-king and they're like, hey, um, it's done. And he's like, oh, were there bombs? Where's the king? He's like, the king was shot. And he's like, that's probably the best that could have happened. Where are the bombs? In that barn that I can literally see from my bedroom. Okay, let's go. And so they go out there and the 5 bodies have been laid out. And he's like, oh, what should we do? You know what? You're the one, Fairman, who dealt with international politics. You should be the one to bury them, but not by the well, Fairman. People need to drink from that well. Put him over here. And he has the question, like, wondering if there are other kings like Ferdinand who are holding out on the world government. I'm going to say there are. And I'm going to say that this upsets Egbert. Hmm. You're watching the Spurs-Knicks game? It's on in the other room. Palms are sweating so far. Mmm. All good assumptions. Fun fact for the day, Peter Sellers played 3 characters in Doctor Strangelove. the President of the United States of America, the RAF officer, Dr. Strangelove, he was supposed to play a fourth bomber pilot, but got in a fight with Stanley Kubrick on top of the prop bomb high in the air, got kicked off, and broke his ankle. That is a fun fact. We are full of fun facts today. Go Bulls. They didn't do it this year. They weren't good, from what I've heard. I don't watch basketball. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. We are on fire with fun facts tonight, truly. All right. That's going to be it for tonight, though. We will pick up next time with chapter the fourth, the new phase. Mm. Mm. When is next time? So glad that you asked. It's tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central, Thursday. I'm enjoying this. I am enjoying this. I don't like how eerily like reality it is, but I am enjoying this. At least they stayed in the city this year. We don't talk about this. So, thank you all so much for being here. It was a pleasure. As always, whether you lurk or whether you chat, I 1000% appreciate you, and I 1000% appreciate your support. If I do not see you next time, I hope to see you very soon. Goodbye.